The notary had just asked my son for his driver's license when my future daughter-in-law smiled at me and texted, "You're too old to need it." That lake house was supposed to pay for an $88,000 wedding. Marla Voss had already spent $36,000 of money she did not have. My son Daniel thought he was starting a life. Kelsey thought I was in the way. They all forgot one thing. A house only sells when the right name signs. And when Elaine Mercer read the first page, her hand stopped halfway down the paper, and then I placed the brown folder on the table. Let me take you back 2 days. My name is Walter Harlan. I am 70 years old. I did not raise my voice that morning. I did not need to. Daniel sat at my kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a coffee mug he had not touched. He looked like a boy caught near a broken window. Only he was 38 years old, wearing a pressed blue shirt and trying to tell his father he had sold the Harlan Lake house. Kelsey sat beside him. She wore a white sweater, white nails, white smile. Her phone lay face down near my sugar bowl. Behind her stood Marla Voss. Marla did not sit. She liked rooms better when she could stand over them. "You'll see this is best," Marla said. "Everybody wins." I looked at Daniel. "Say it plain," I told him. He swallowed. "Dad, we accepted an offer." "On what?" He blinked at me. "On the lake house." I heard the refrigerator kick on. I heard a truck shift gears out on Pine Hollow Road. I heard my own blood slow and steady. "That's an old mechanic's habit. You listen first. A Caterpillar fuel pump will tell you what's wrong if you don't crowd it. Paperwork is the same. Date, source, signature, copy." I set it down straight. Daniel rubbed his thumb along the mug. "It'll help start our life." "Our wedding got bigger than expected," Kelsey said. Marla made a small sound, not quite a laugh. "Not bigger," she said. "Proper. There's a difference." I looked at the three of them. My wife's chair was empty at the end of the table. Ruth Harlan used to sit there with a yellow legal pad. She paid bills there. She planned church suppers there. She drew the dock there on graph paper because she wanted it wide enough for 2 lawn chairs. That chair had been empty for 4 years. Daniel kept talking. "The buyer is from Knoxville, cash, closing Friday, it's clean." "Clean," I said. "Yes." "Who signed the listing agreement?" Daniel looked at Kelsey. Kelsey looked at Marla. Marla smiled wider. "Walter, we don't need to make this difficult." That was when Kelsey's phone buzzed. She picked it up, read something, and smiled at me. Then my own phone buzzed. The text came from Kelsey. "You're too old to need it." She did not blush. She did not apologize. She set her phone down like she had finished signing a receipt. I read it twice. Old. Need. It. I laid my phone beside my coffee. Daniel saw my face change. Not much. Just enough. "Dad, she didn't mean it like that." I looked at my son. "Then how did she mean it?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Marla stepped in for him. She always did. "She means you don't use the place. Not really. You're alone up there. It's not healthy. Frankly, Daniel and I have been worried." "Worried?" I said. "Yes," Marla said. "You've seemed confused lately." "Confused." I rebuilt marine engines for 43 years. I owned 2 repair bays off River Road. Men brought me diesel blocks in pieces and left with them running. I still had invoice copies for every gasket, belt, filter, and pump I ever ordered after 1989. But Marla Voss had decided I was confused. I stood up. Kelsey leaned back a little. Daniel looked at the floor. I walked to the pantry wall, moved the broom aside, and opened the small steel door behind it. Daniel had watched me open that safe since he was a teenager. He knew I kept titles there. Boat titles, truck titles, land papers, insurance maps. He did not know about the brown folder. I touched it first, just with 2 fingers. Old man's habit, maybe a husband's habit. The folder was plain and worn at the corners. Ruth had written Harlan Lake Place on the tab in blue ink. Her handwriting still leaned uphill. I did not pull it out yet, not then. I shut the safe and came back to the table. "What are you doing?" Marla asked. "Checking my memory," I said. Her face tightened. Daniel whispered, "Dad." I sat down and looked at him. "When is this closing?" "Friday at 10, he said. "In Knoxville." "Where?" "Cumberland Title Services," Kelsey said. "On Kingston Pike." That got my attention. "Elaine Mercer still there?" I asked. Marla frowned. You know the notary? I fixed her husband's shrimp boat engine for 12 years. This isn't a boat, Marla said. No, I told her. It's paperwork. Kelsey's cheeks turned red. Walter, we're not trying to take anything. I slid my phone toward her. The text still showed. You put that in writing, I said. She looked away. Marla moved closer to the table. The sale price is generous. $465,000. More than fair for an old cabin. My wife's lake house was not an old cabin. I poured the footings myself in 1996. I set the beams with my brother before his knees gave out. I ran every water line, wired every dock light, and hung every porch board Ruth ever leaned against. But I did not say that. A man can waste his breath proving a beam is load-bearing, or he can let the roof explain it later. Daniel said, Dad, I thought Mom left part of it to me. That one landed, not hard, deep. Who told you that? Daniel's eyes flicked to Marla again. Marla lifted her chin. Ruth would have wanted Daniel taken care of. I looked at her. You didn't know Ruth. I knew what kind of mother she was. No, I said. You knew what kind of story helped you. The room went quiet. Daniel pushed back from the table. This is why I didn't want to do it this way. What way? I asked. He stood, then sat again. Kelsey's mom says we need to protect you from bad decisions. I heard the word protect. That is a soft word until somebody uses it like a wrench. Marla touched his shoulder. Daniel, honey, don't twist it. I'm not twisting anything, he said. For 1 second, my son sounded like himself. Then Kelsey took his hand, and that second passed. We've already made deposits, Kelsey said. The venue, flowers, band, food. We can't unwind all that because you're attached to a house. Attached, I said. Kelsey nodded. Yes. You ever pay a property tax bill on it? She blinked. That's not the point. You ever replace the dock boards? No. You ever write a check for the roof? Marla cut in. Walter, nobody is denying you maintained it. Maintained, I said. I almost laughed at that. Almost. I had spent $74,600 building that house before the first curtain went up. Ruth and I paid $118,000 for the land. The dock ran $21,000. The stone fireplace cost $9,800 because Ruth wanted local stone from Roane County. Those numbers were not memories. They were records. Daniel knew that about me. He had forgotten what it meant. Marla set a folder on my table. Not brown. White. New. Thin. This is the purchase summary, she said. We wanted you to feel included. I opened it. There was a buyer name, a closing date, a sale price, a line for seller proceeds. Seller proceeds estimated at $428,712 after fees. Then I saw another line, pre-funded venue hold, $36,000. I tapped it once. What is this? Marla reached for the folder. I moved it away. She smiled too quickly. That's just wedding accounting. Pre-funded venue hold, I read. It's common, she said. I asked what it is. Kelsey spoke fast. Mom arranged it so we wouldn't lose the date. With whose money? Our money, Kelsey said. I looked at Daniel. Your money? He stared at the paper. Marla's voice got crisp. It comes out at closing. It's already handled. Already handled. You have to understand something about men who fix engines. When a man says something is already handled, you look for the leak. You do not admire the shine. I closed the white folder. Leave it here, I said. Marla's hand stiffened. That copy is mine. It's on my table. Walter. I looked at her until she stopped. Daniel stood again. This time he did not sit. Dad, please, I know this is hard, but Kelsey and I need a beginning. Then build one. His mouth tightened. You don't have to make everything a test. No, I said. Some things come tested. Kelsey picked up her purse. Marla took the white folder from the table. She did it with 2 fingers, like my house had dirt on it. We'll see you Friday, she said. Elaine will explain everything. I nodded. Daniel lingered at the door. For a moment, I saw the boy who used to run down that dock with a towel around his shoulders. Ruth would yell, "Slow down," and he would not. He never did. Dad, he said, I'm not trying to hurt you. I know. His face changed. Maybe that was worse for him. Marla called from the porch. Daniel. He left. Their tires went down the gravel drive. The sound faded toward Pine Hollow Road. I sat there with Kelsey's text still lit on my phone. You're too old to need it. I did not delete it. I took a screenshot. Then I wrote the date and time on a yellow pad. Thursday, May 7th, 8:42 a.m. Text from Kelsey Voss. Present in kitchen, Daniel Harlan, Kelsey Voss, Marla Voss. Claimed sale of Harlan Lake Place. I set it down straight. After that, I opened the safe again. This time I pulled out the brown folder. The paper smelled like dust and old ink. I know that sounds small. It wasn't small to me. Ruth had touched every page in that folder before she got too weak to stand long. There was the warranty deed from 1996. There was the survivorship correction from 2020. There was a title copy from Roane County. There was Ruth's note, clipped inside with a rusted paper clip. I did not read it yet. I put my palm over it. Then I called no one. Not yet. A hot engine needs a minute before you open the cap. So does a family. I took the folder to my workbench in the garage. That bench had seen starters, alternators, carburetors from old ski boats, and enough busted injectors to fill a bucket. It had one clean corner for paperwork. Ruth used to tease me about that. You'll eat lunch beside a grease rag, she'd say, but your receipts look ready for church. She was right. I pulled my safe deposit log from the bottom drawer. Cedar Bluff Credit Union, Box 17, access dates, copies stored, originals retained. I ran my finger down the page. March 12, 2020. Deed correction filed. March 16, 2020. Certified copy received. March 17, 2020. Original placed in brown folder. Ruth had signed the correction on March 6th. She went into hospice care in April. That is all I will say about that part. Some losses do not need decoration. I sat on the stool and looked at her note. Do not let anyone make this place smaller than our life. Ruth wrote that because she knew people. She knew Daniel was soft where love was concerned. She knew I was quiet where trouble was concerned. She knew a quiet man can be mistaken for an empty one. Ruth was never fooled by quiet. The lake house started as her idea, not the money part, not the property part, the life part. Back then, I still had Harlan Marine Diesel, 2 repair bays down by the river. Bay 1 had a lift, a parts cage, and a furnace that knocked like a loose rod every January. Bay 2 handled the bigger jobs, tug engines, barge pumps, charter boats that had been patched by men with more confidence than skill. I made good money because I solved ugly problems. By 2015, the shop grossed $1,200,000 a year. I paid my mechanics well. I paid taxes clean. I kept debt low. Ruth kept me from working myself into the ground. Water should be looked at, she told me once, not only crossed. So we bought 5 acres on Watts Bar Lake, West Edge, off Pine Hollow Road. The seller wanted $125,000. Ruth offered $118,000 and a peach pie. He took both. That was Ruth. She could soften a man without weakening an inch. We built the house slow. I poured concrete before sunrise. I ran to the shop by 7. I came back after 6 and hung joists until my shoulders burned. Ruth brought sandwiches and labeled boxes of screws. No bank owned that place. We paid as we went. By the time Daniel was in college, the lake house was finished. 2 bedrooms, 1 sleeping loft, a porch facing the water. A dock Ruth called her front row. When she got sick, we spent more time there. She did not want fuss. She wanted ordinary things. Coffee, porch shade, Daniel calling on Sundays, me pretending I was not watching her every breath. After she passed, I kept the house exactly as she left it for 6 months. Then I cleaned it the way she would have wanted, not like a shrine, like a promise. Marla Voss entered our family 2 years later. Kelsey brought Daniel to a dinner at Calhoun's in Knoxville. Marla came too, though nobody invited her. She had a laugh that arrived before the joke. She called me Mr. Harlan for 10 minutes, then Walter for the rest of the night. She asked what my place was worth before she asked how long Ruth and I had been married. I noticed. Daniel did not. Kelsey was pretty, bright, and used to being managed. Marla managed the waiter, the seating, the wine list, and eventually my son. At first it was small. Walter, you shouldn't drive at night. Walter, online banking might be easier if Daniel helped. Walter, lake stairs are dangerous at your age. Every sentence wore a helpful coat. Then came the word confused. The first time she said it, we were at Daniel's rental house in Knoxville. He had lost a bill from the power company. I told him it was on the counter under a cookbook. Marla smiled and said, "Maybe Walter is mixing houses again." I looked at her. No, it had a green envelope. Daniel found it 3 minutes later. Marla said nothing. The second time was worse. She told Kelsey I had repeated a question at lunch. I had not. I had asked 2 different questions about the same missing check. One was who wrote it, the other was who cashed it. There is a difference. By the month before the wedding, she had Daniel saying it too. "Dad, you've lost a step." That hurt more than Kelsey's text. A stranger can throw a stone and miss your heart. Your child knows where it is. Still, I said little. I watched. I saved messages. I printed emails. I wrote dates down. I checked county records on the Roane County Title Index every Monday morning with my coffee. It took 12 minutes. Parcel number, owner name, recording date, last instrument. Nothing changed. No deed out, no transfer, no signature. So when Daniel sat at my kitchen table and said the house was sold, I knew one thing for certain. Somebody had built a bridge with no pilings. By noon that same Thursday, I drove into Cedar Bluff Credit Union. It sits near the pharmacy and the hardware store where old men still stand in the aisle and discuss mower belts like weather. The teller knew me. "Morning, Mr. Harlan." "Morning, Beth." I signed the access card for box 17. She walked me back. Inside the vault room, the air was cool. The table had 1 chair and a pen chained to it. I always disliked that pen. A man trusted with a box of originals should be trusted with a pen. I opened the metal box and checked the duplicate packet. Certified deed copy. Ruth's death certificate copy. Trust amendment from 2021. Title insurance policy. I did not remove anything. I photographed the packet labels with my phone, then I put them back exactly. Date, source, signature, copy. When I came home, there was an envelope stuck in my storm door. No stamp. Inside was a printed notice from Cumberland Title Services. Harlan Lake Place. Proposed closing. Buyer earnest money held in escrow. $10,000. Seller proceeds assignment request. $36,000. Venue payee. Marble Ridge Events. Marla Voss signature. Event coordinator. I stood in the doorway and read that line 3 times. Not mother of the bride. Not helpful parent. Event coordinator. Marla had put her business inside my house sale. That changed the weight of it. This was not a daughter wanting flowers. This was a woman using my wife's porch as collateral. My phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. "Dad, Marla says the title company sent you something by mistake." "No mistake." "She says don't worry about the wording." "I'm not worried." He breathed into the phone. "Are you going to sign?" I looked out toward the ridgeline. Pine Hollow Road was quiet. A crow sat on the fence post by Ruth's old flower bed. "Did you ever see a deed with your name on it?" I asked. Daniel went silent. "Daniel." "No." "Did you sign anything saying you owned that house?" "No." "Then what exactly did you sell?" He sounded small when he answered. "I don't know." "I don't know," he said again. That was the first honest thing my son had said all morning. I stood there with the phone in my hand and the notice in the other. The paper was still bent from being shoved in the storm door. Somebody had been in a hurry. Haste leaves marks, same as a bad wrench on a bolt. "Where are you?" I asked. "At Kelsey's." "Is Marla there?" He hesitated. "Yes." "Can she hear me?" "No." I did not believe that. I could hear a television in the background, too low to be watched. I could hear a woman's voice say something soft and close. "Daniel," I said, "put me on speaker." "Dad, please don't." "Put me on speaker." There was a click. Then the room on his end got wider. Marla spoke first. "Walter, this is unnecessary." "Good," I said. "Then it'll be short." Kelsey said, "We're already stressed." "I know." Daniel breathed once. "Dad, what do you need?" "Dinner tonight?" I said. 6:30. Calhoun's on Kingston Pike. Marla answered too fast. "We're busy tonight." Then lunch. "We have vendor calls, then breakfast." Silence. I looked down at the notice again. Venue payee, Marble Ridge Events, Marla Voss signature, event coordinator. You're asking me to sign papers Friday, I said. I'll eat one meal first. Kelsey's voice came through tight. Are you going to embarrass us? No. Marla said, Walter, we can handle this with Elaine. I'm not eating with Elaine. Daniel said, We'll come. Marla cut in. Daniel, we'll come, he said again. For a second, I heard my boy in there. 6:30, I said. Then I hung up. I took the envelope to my workbench and laid it beside the brown folder. I did not lay it on top. Ruth's folder did not need that paper touching it. I put the Cumberland notice on the right side. Then I pulled a fresh yellow sheet from the pad and wrote at the top, Cumberland title notice received. No stamp. Storm door. Thursday, May 7th, 12:26 p.m. I wrote what it said. Buyer earnest money. $10,000. Seller proceeds assignment. $36,000. Venue payee. Marble Ridge Events. Signature. Marla Voss. Date. Source. Signature. Copy. I set it down straight. Then I called Cedar Bluff Mutual, where I kept the insurance on the lake house. I had been with that agency since 1998, back when the first policy premium was $784 a year. It was $3,212 now, because docks, roofs, and storms do not get cheaper. A girl named Ashley answered. This is Walter Harlan, I said. Policy ending 917. One moment, Mr. Harlan. I heard typing. Got it, she said. Lake property on Pine Hollow Road? That's right. Has anyone requested a lost payee change? More typing, then a pause. We had an inquiry yesterday. Who from? I can't give out another party's information. I'm the named insured. Yes, sir. The inquiry came from Cumberland Title Services. What did they ask? They requested current declarations and mortgagee status. There is no mortgage. That's what we told them. Did anyone ask to add a buyer? No, sir. Just title. Send me that activity note. I can send a summary. Send it now. She did. I printed it in my office off the garage, where the old laser printer still clicked like a relay. The page came out warm. I wrote the time on it and clipped it behind the title notice. Then I drove to the lake, not because I needed air. I have never believed air fixes trouble. I went because people will lie about a house quicker when the house is out of sight. The Harlan place sat off Pine Hollow Road behind a gravel pull-off and a split-rail fence Ruth had wanted instead of chain link. She said chain link looked like you were either keeping people out or holding dogs in. The gravel crunched under my truck. The maple by the drive had leafed out thick. Ruth planted it as a skinny thing in a 5-gallon bucket. She paid $46 for it at a nursery outside Lenoir City and told me it would outlive both of us. She was half right. I unlocked the door and stood inside a minute. The house was clean. I had been there on Tuesday. Nothing moved without me knowing, but I still checked. Front window latch locked, porch slider locked, utility closet locked, dock box locked. Then I saw it. A white paper was taped inside the porch window facing out toward the water. Not big. Letter size. I crossed the room and pulled it down. Private showing scheduled. Friday morning. Buyer final walkthrough. No company name, no phone number, just a time. 9:15 a.m. The closing was at 10. I stood there in Ruth's living room with that paper in my hand. They were not only selling a house they did not own, they were promising a walkthrough in a house they had no key to. You have to understand something. Locks are not just metal. A lock tells you who thinks he belongs. Somebody thought my wife's door was a detail. I called Daniel back. He answered on the first ring. Dad? Who has a key? What? To the lake house. Nobody. Try again. I don't have one. That isn't what I asked. He was quiet long enough to tell me he knew. Kelsey has my old key ring, he said, from college. Why? She liked the Harlan Marine tag. That tag had my shop number stamped into brass. I gave it to him when he got his first used truck. Ruth had put a little blue float on it, so it would not sink if he dropped it at the dock. Did that ring have a lake key? I asked. I don't know. You do? I think so. I looked at the paper again. Somebody taped a showing notice in the window. He said nothing. Daniel. I didn't know. Who scheduled it? I don't know. There it was again, I don't know. Men have built whole disasters out of that sentence. Do not come here, I said. Dad, I can explain. You just said you couldn't. I'll talk to Kelsey. You do that. Then I called Briggs Lock and Key in Cedar Bluff. Old man Briggs had passed on, but his son ran the shop. I had fixed their delivery van twice and never charged labor for the second job. Briggs, he answered. Tommy, it's Walter Harlan. Walter, what's wrong? I need locks changed at Pine Hollow. When? Now. He did not ask why. I can be there in 40 minutes. I'll pay the emergency rate. Don't insult me, he said. I still owe you for that van. I have the receipt. I know you do. He got there in 32 minutes. He changed the front deadbolt, porch slider, utility room, and dock box. 4 cylinders, 6 keys. The bill was $485. He tried to write $300. I made him write the real number. Trouble? He asked. Paperwork. He nodded. Men our age know that word can mean anything. When he left, I put 1 new key in my pocket and locked the rest in the safe box beneath the floorboard of the pantry. Ruth had asked for that little floor safe when we built the place. She kept birthday candles in it once, just to prove I was not the only person allowed to be strange. I sat at the kitchen table and called Elaine Mercer. She answered on the 3rd ring. Cumberland title, Elaine speaking. This is Walter Harlan. There was a small pause, then warmth. Walter, Lord, it's been years. Too many. How's that old Ford truck? Still starts. I believe it. You rebuilt half of Cedar Bluff. I need to ask you something. Her tone changed. All right. Are you handling a closing Friday for Harlan Lake Place? Another pause. This one was not warm. I can't discuss a file with a non-client. I understand. Walter, are you represented on that file? No. Are you signing? That depends who thinks I am. She lowered her voice. I was told Daniel Harlan had authority. What authority? That's what I asked. I waited. She said, I can't say more on the phone. I know. You should come to the office Friday. I plan to. Bring identification. I will. And Walter? Yes. Bring whatever you think matters. I looked at Ruth's brown folder on the passenger seat. I know what matters, I said. After I hung up, I stayed at the lake house another hour. I did not walk the dock. I did not sit on the porch. I checked every drawer that held house papers. In the kitchen drawer, I found Ruth's old notebook. Not the brown folder, not legal, just a spiral book with grocery lists, paint colors, and little house counts. Porch stain, $118. Dock cleats, $64. Daniel's graduation weekend groceries, $211. New blue quilt, $89. She had made life visible in numbers. That was Ruth's way. She never cared about being rich. She cared about knowing what things cost, because cost was tied to effort. She could not stand waste. She could forgive almost anything faster than waste. I put the notebook back where it belonged. At 5:40, I drove home, showered, and put on a clean blue shirt, not a suit. A suit makes some men feel taller. I never needed cloth to do that. I took the white notice, the insurance activity note, the showing paper, and copies from my safe deposit packet. I left the original brown folder at home. That may sound strange. It was not time. At 6:27, I walked into Calhoun's on Kingston Pike. I knew that room. Ruth and I had eaten there after Daniel passed his driver's test. He ordered ribs and got sauce on his shirt. Ruth laughed until she had to wipe her eyes. Daniel sat in a booth near the back. Kelsey sat beside him. Marla sat across from them with her back to the wall. She wanted to see the door. People who manage a room like to watch entrances. There was a 4th place set for me. Marla smiled before I sat down. Walter, we're glad you came. No, you aren't. Her smile stayed, but the sides of it failed. Daniel looked worn. Kelsey looked angry. She had done her hair like a photograph was coming. A waitress came by. Can I get drinks? Water, I said. Marla ordered wine. Kelsey ordered wine too. Daniel asked for sweet tea. When the waitress left, Marla folded her hands. Walter, we need to lower the tension. I brought papers, Kelsey sighed. Of course you did. I set the copies beside my napkin, face down. Marla looked at them. This isn't a deposition. No. Then maybe start with trust. I looked at Daniel. Who signed the listing agreement? He blinked. What? The house had to be listed or offered. Who signed? Marla put her hand on the table. It was a private buyer. Who found him? I did, she said. What's his name? That's confidential until closing. Kelsey knows? Kelsey looked at her mother. Daniel said, I think his name is Preston. Last name? I don't remember. I nodded. What did he offer? $465, Kelsey said. Earnest money? She frowned. $10,000. Who holds it? Marla said Cumberland. Who signed the purchase agreement? Daniel rubbed his forehead. Dad, I signed something. What did it say? It said intent to convey my interest. Your interest. He swallowed. Yes. Marla leaned forward, which he believed he had. Believed because who told him? Kelsey snapped. Because families share things. I looked at her. That isn't an answer. Her face reddened. You don't have to interrogate us. I asked a question. Daniel said, Marla said Mom wanted me protected. There it was on the table, served hot. Marla lifted her chin. Ruth was a mother. Any mother would. You keep saying her name. She is part of this. No, I said. She is the reason it isn't yours. The waitress came back with drinks. Nobody spoke while she set them down. I thanked her. Marla did not. When she left, I turned one paper over. It was the showing notice from the lake house window. Who taped this inside my porch? Kelsey's mouth opened, then closed. Marla said, that was routine. You were in the house? It was for buyer comfort. Were you in the house? Daniel looked at Kelsey. Kelsey said, I had Daniel's old key. That key was never yours. It was just sitting in a drawer. Whose drawer? Daniel said quietly, mine. I looked at him. You gave her Ruth's house key? He flinched at Ruth's name. I didn't think about it that way. That's the trouble. Marla took a sip of wine. Her hand was steady, but her throat moved twice. Walter, the buyer has already scheduled inspection adjustments. Inspection? It's minor. What adjustments? She waved one hand. Dock railing, electrical labeling, water heater strap. There was an inspection? Kelsey said, why are you acting shocked? Because nobody inspected my house. Marla smiled again. You're forgetting access permission. Confused had worn one coat. Forgetting wore another. I turned over the insurance activity note. Cedar Bluff Mutual says Cumberland asked for declarations yesterday. Marla barely looked at it. That's normal. For a seller they haven't verified? She said nothing. I pulled the next page. It was a copy of the envelope notice. $36,000 assigned to Marble Ridge Events, I said. Kelsey's eyes moved to her mother. Daniel sat up. What? Marla said. That's not final accounting. I kept my voice even. It says seller proceeds assignment request. Daniel reached for the page. I let him take it. He read slowly. I watched his face change when he got to his future mother-in-law's name. Event coordinator, he said. Marla said, that is my business role. You told me this was a venue hold, Daniel said. It is. With Dad's proceeds? Expected proceeds, she said. That was a bad phrase. Even she knew it. Kelsey whispered, Mom. Marla turned to her. Don't start. Daniel looked at Kelsey. You knew? Kelsey's eyes filled, but no tears fell. I knew Mom handled deposits. How much? Kelsey looked down. I answered, $36,000 on this paper. Marla's jaw tightened. The wedding costs $88,000. That number includes food, music, photography, flowers, transportation, and service charges. It is not extravagant for what they deserve. What they deserve, I said. Daniel put the page down. His fingers were shaking. I thought we had $12,000 saved, he said. Kelsey said, we do. Then where did the rest come from? Marla answered before she could. Temporary bridge financing. With what collateral? I asked. Marla looked at me then. Really looked. The helpful coat came off. You've had your life, Walter. Daniel whispered, Marla. She ignored him. You have 2 houses, retirement accounts, that shop sale money, and whatever else Ruth left you. Ruth left me her trust. And Daniel got what? I did not answer fast. Daniel's eyes came to mine. What did I get? He asked. Your mother's life insurance named you for $50,000, I said. I gave it to you in full. He looked stunned. That was from Mom? Yes. Marla said, that was years ago. I paid your last 18 months of college too, I said. $31,400. Daniel stared at the table. I paid the down payment on your Knoxville rental when you and Kelsey moved in, I said. $18,000. I paid your truck repair last winter, $4,620. I paid the medical bill you said embarrassed you, $7,900. Kelsey's face hardened. Are you keeping score? Yes. That one word sat there. I took a drink of water. I kept score when he needed help, I said. I keep score now that you call it inheritance. Daniel covered his mouth with his hand. Marla leaned back. You see, Daniel, this is control. No, I said. Control is spending money before you own it. She picked up her wine. You don't know business. I almost smiled. Harlan Marine Diesel sold for $2,850,000 in 2022. I started it with $8,000 in tools, a rented bay, and one customer whose engine would not idle. I knew business. I knew cash flow. I knew debt. I knew what panic looked like when it wore lipstick. I did not say any of that yet. Instead, I asked one more question. Marla, is Marble Ridge Events current on its accounts? Her glass stopped halfway down. Kelsey turned. Mom? Marla said, that's insulting. Is it current? My company is private. Daniel's voice was flat. Mom. I said it's private. I reached into my folder and pulled the last page. It was not bank information. I did not have that. It was a public filing from Knox County. UCC financing statement, filed 6 weeks earlier. Debtor, Marble Ridge Events, LLC. Secured party, Ridgeline Commercial Lending. Collateral, accounts receivable, contract rights, deposit flows, event proceeds. The amount was not on that page. But the continuation note attached to the filing referenced a credit line ceiling of $120,000. I placed it between the salt and pepper shakers. Kelsey picked it up first. What is this? Marla said, give me that. Kelsey did not. Daniel leaned over. Ridgeline? Marla's face had gone pale under the restaurant light. I said, public record. Kelsey looked at her mother. You borrowed against the business? Marla said, businesses use credit. Against our wedding? Against receivables. Mom. The word sounded young. Marla pointed at me. He's doing this to punish you. No, I said. You want them to have nothing. No. You want your son dependent. I looked at Daniel. I want him awake. Daniel did not look away this time. The waitress came back with a basket of bread. She set it down carefully and left quicker than before. She had been a waitress long enough to know when a table was burning. Marla gathered her purse. We're done. I nodded. Maybe. She stood. Friday is still happening. Daniel looked at her. How? Elaine knows the file. I said, Elaine knows title. Marla's eyes narrowed. You'll sign. No. Kelsey made a small sound. Marla leaned over the table. Her voice dropped. Then you can explain to 200 guests why your son's wedding collapsed. Daniel shut his eyes. There was the real wrench. Not love, not need, shame. I stood too, because I was done sitting under her. Daniel, I said, you come to my house tonight if you want truth? Marla laughed once. He doesn't need your workshop sermon. Daniel opened his eyes. I'll come, he said. Kelsey grabbed his arm. Daniel. He looked at her hand, then at her. I'll come, he repeated. Marla stared at him like he had broken rank in church. I laid enough cash on the table for my water, their drinks, and the bread nobody touched. $40. Then I picked up my papers. 6:30 was dinner, I said. Truth starts at 8. I walked out first. At home, I opened the garage doors and turned on the workbench lights. The bench looked better under white light than any conference table ever made. Steel tells the truth. Wood remembers weight. Paper behaves if you keep your hands clean. I pulled 3 boxes from the fire cabinet. Harlan Marine sale file, Ruth estate file, Daniel support ledger. I did not open the brown folder yet. At 8:12, Daniel's truck came up the drive alone. He parked where he used to park in high school, crooked by the oak. He sat inside for almost a minute. Then he got out. He looked older walking toward me. Not 70, not even 40, just older than the boy I kept seeing when I wanted to forgive too quickly. He stepped into the garage. "Where's Kelsey?" I asked. "At her mom's." "Good." He looked at the boxes. "Dad, what is all this?" "Your mother's part." He swallowed. "Okay." I pointed to the stool across from me. "Sit." He sat. I opened the Daniel support ledger first. It was not fancy. 3-ring binder, clear sleeves, canceled checks, wire receipts, tuition statements, loan payoff letters. I turned pages slowly. I did not shove it at him. "Your mother's life policy," I said. $50,000. Paid June 10th, 2020. He touched the page. "I thought that was from you." It passed through my hand. It came from her. "Why didn't you tell me? You were grieving." He looked down. I turned another page. "Tuition balance, $31,400. I paid it because Ruth asked me to." He whispered, "She did?" "She wrote it here." I slid a photocopy across the bench. Ruth's writing was small near the bottom of a yellow sheet. "Help him finish. Don't let pride make it harder." Daniel put his hand over his eyes. I let him sit with that. A man needs room when his own memory turns on him. Then I opened the estate file, not the brown one, the regular one. "Ruth's will left personal items to you," I said. "Her cedar chest, her mother's ring if you ever had a daughter, her letters." "I never got letters." "I kept them until you asked." He looked up. "I didn't know." "No." "Why didn't I know?" "Because you stopped coming by alone." That landed. I did not soften it. He looked toward the dark driveway. "Marla said Mom changed things before she died." "She did." His face tightened. "So there is something?" "Yes." I opened the trust amendment copy, the one from the credit union packet. I put my finger on the first page but did not slide it to him. "She removed the lake house from anything that could be argued over," I said. "Why?" "Because she knew us." He looked confused. "She knew you would want peace," I said. "She knew I would avoid a fight. She knew other people might use both." Daniel looked like he might object. He did not. "Did she leave me any part of it?" he asked. "No." He breathed out. It was not anger. It was defeat. I watched my son accept a fact that should have been told to him clean years earlier. Maybe that part was on me. Quiet can protect a wound, but it can also leave a dark room for somebody else to work in. "I should have shown you sooner," I said. He looked at me then. "You never talk about Mom." "I talked to her." His mouth trembled. "That's not the same." "No," I said. "It isn't." For a while the garage hummed around us. The old refrigerator kicked on. A night insect hit the light over the door again and again. Daniel said, "Did Kelsey know I didn't own it?" "I don't know." "Did Marla?" I looked at the papers. "She knew enough to avoid asking me." He gave a bitter laugh. "That sounds like yes. It sounds like business." I pulled the UCC filing back out. "This credit line," I said. "Ask Kelsey about it. Ask where the $88,000 is coming from." He nodded slowly. Then he said the thing I had been waiting for. "Dad, can I see the deed?" I looked at the pantry wall inside the house. The safe was behind it. The brown folder was there. Ruth's note was clipped inside. "Not yet." I closed the estate file. "You can see enough Friday." His head came up. "Why Friday?" "Because they built a table. Let them sit at it." He stared at me, and for the first time all day, he understood I was not confused. He looked almost afraid of me. I did not enjoy that, but I did not correct it either. "Are you going to stop the wedding?" he asked. "No." "Then what are you stopping?" "The lie." He rubbed both hands down his face. "Kelsey will say you're ruining us." "She already did. She sent that text because Mom was in her ear." I stood still. "Say it," I told him. He looked at me. "Say the text." He swallowed. "You're too old to need it." I nodded. "Need," I said. "That's the word they chose." He looked ashamed. "I'm sorry." "Not yet." His face changed. "I mean it." "I know, but sorry before truth is just a rag over a spill." He sat back. What do I do? Go home. Ask for every invoice. Ask for every loan. Ask who signed what. Ask why your future mother-in-law called herself event coordinator on money from a house she never owned. He nodded. And Daniel? Yeah. Do not warn them about my papers. He looked toward the bench. Okay? I mean it. I won't. He stood, then stopped. Dad, did Mom really know? I looked at the safe wall again. I could see Ruth's handwriting without opening anything. She knew enough, I said. Daniel left at 9:31. I wrote that down too. After his taillights disappeared, I took the brown folder and drove back to the lake house. It was late, but the road was clear. Cedar Bluff gets quiet after 9 unless the high school has a game. Pine Hollow Road was dark under the trees. My headlights caught the new lock shine on the front door. I went inside and did not turn on the living room lights. I knew every step. I carried the folder through the house and out to the boat shed beside the dock. The boat shed still smelled faintly of oil, lake water, and old rope. Ruth hated that smell at first. Then she said it meant I was home even when I was at the shop. I had a little desk in there, made from leftover porch boards. It was where I kept fishing licenses, spare bulbs, dock screws, and the receipt for the last bilge pump I installed on our old runabout. I sat down and opened the brown folder. The deed was first. I did not remove it. Ruth's note was clipped behind the survivorship correction. I took it out carefully. The paper had softened at the fold. Her blue ink had faded a little, but not much. I read it out loud because some words deserve air. Do not let anyone make this place smaller than our life. My voice broke on the last word. I sat there and could not say anything for a minute. Then I read the second line. I had not looked at that line earlier. Maybe I had avoided it. Maybe I knew it would make the room too small. If Daniel forgets, help him remember before you judge him. I put the note flat on the desk. There it was. Ruth, still fairer than me, still seeing both sides when I wanted only one. I leaned back in that old chair and listened to the water knock against the dock posts. I thought about Daniel with sauce on his shirt, Daniel carrying Ruth's pillow from the car when she got tired, Daniel letting Marla put words in his mouth because he wanted to be loved without choosing between people. Then I thought about Kelsey's text, "You're too old to need it." I folded Ruth's note along the same crease. My hands were steady now. I'm helping him remember, I said to the empty shed, but I'm not paying for their lie. The next morning, I drove to Knoxville before the banks opened. I did not go to Cumberland Title. Not yet. I went to the Roane County Register's satellite terminal at the records office and pulled the title index again. Same parcel, same owner, same last instrument, Walter Harlan, sole vested owner. I paid $2 per page for certified copies of the deed record, the survivorship correction, and the restriction Ruth had insisted on when we filed the 2020 paperwork. That restriction was simple: no conveyance, mortgage, assignment, or beneficial transfer of the Pine Hollow property could occur without Walter Harlan's notarized signature and physical presence unless a court order said otherwise. Ruth wanted those words because she had watched a neighbor lose land through a cousin with a power of attorney and a smooth banker. She came home from that mess and said, "We are not leaving a side door." She was sick by then, tired, still sharper than anybody in a suit. The clerk stamped each copy. Thunk, 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 sounded like a hammer setting nails. "That'll be $6, she said. I paid cash. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed. Kelsey. The text said, "Please don't make tomorrow ugly." I looked at it for a long time. Then another text came. "Mom says you're trying to scare Daniel." I typed one sentence. "Bring every document you relied on." Then I took a screenshot. At 11:18, Daniel called. "She won't show me the loan papers," he said. "Who?" "Kelsey." "What does she say?" "She says it's her mom's business." "Ask about the purchase agreement." "She said Marla has it." "And Marla?" "She says Elaine has it." "I started my truck. Then tomorrow should be educational." "Dad." "What?" "I found something." I turned the key back off. "What?" "In Kelsey's email. She left it open on the tablet." "I don't want stolen passwords." It was open. "What did you find?" He breathed hard. "Marla sent the buyer a letter. It says you were aware but emotionally resistant. It says I'm authorized to act as family representative." I closed my eyes. Family representative. That phrase had a clean shirt and dirty hands. Send it to yourself, I said, then send it to me. Is that legal? I'm not your lawyer. I don't have a lawyer. Then don't alter anything. Photograph the screen with the date visible. Okay? And Daniel? Yeah? Do not argue in that house. They're already arguing. Then leave. He was quiet. Dad, Kelsey says if I walk out, the wedding is off. I looked at the stamped copies on the seat beside me. Then you finally know the price. He did not answer. By late afternoon, the photograph came through. It showed an email from Marla to a man named Preston Whale. Buyer. The subject line read, Harlan Lake Closing. In the message, Marla wrote that the elder owner was aware of family plans, that Daniel Harlan had practical authority, and that emotional resistance was expected but would be resolved at closing. Elder owner, practical authority, emotional resistance. There are people who can turn theft into weather if you let them choose the words. I printed the email photograph and put it behind the UCC filing. Then I called Elaine again. Cumberland Title, she said. Walter Harlan. She exhaled softly. I hoped you'd call. I'm coming tomorrow. I figured. Is Preston Whale the buyer? She paused. I can't confirm. You just did. Walter, Elaine, I'm not asking you to break rules. I'm telling you I'll be there with certified copies. Good. Will the buyer be present? Yes. Will Marla Voss? She requested to attend as transaction coordinator. I almost laughed. Event coordinator at the venue. Transaction coordinator at title. Same ladder, different wall. Did Daniel give her authority? Not authority that clears title. That's all I needed. Elaine's voice lowered. Walter, I ran preliminary title twice. Your name is the only vested owner. I know. Then why is this closing on my calendar? Because somebody thought Calendar Inc. was stronger than a deed. She was quiet a second. Bring the originals if you have them. I have them. And Walter? Yes. Don't be late. I rebuilt engines for men who charge by the minute, I said. I know clocks. That night I did not sleep much. I did not pace either. I sat at my kitchen table with Ruth's folder closed in front of me and made the final packet. Certified copies in order. Insurance activity note, showing notice. Cumberland envelope notice. UCC filing. Marla email photograph. Kelsey text screenshot. I did not need all of it for title. Title was title. But a bad engine often fails in more than one place, and I wanted every leak marked. At 10 minutes past midnight, Daniel texted. I'm at a motel, I wrote back. Which one? He sent the name of a place near Lovell Road. $94 a night if you did not mind thin towels. I typed, Are you safe? He answered, Yes. I stared at that word. Safe had become a strange thing in my family. Then he wrote, I don't know if I'm getting married. I did not answer right away. Ruth's note sat beside my hand. Finally, I typed, Decide after truth, not before. He sent nothing back. Friday morning came gray over Cedar Bluff, the kind of gray that makes the lake look like hammered tin. I dressed in my dark work pants, white shirt, and the same brown belt I had worn for 20 years. I put my driver's license in my shirt pocket, not my wallet, so no one could say I fumbled for it. Then I opened the safe. I took out the brown folder. For a moment, I kept my hand on the safe door. That steel box had held truck titles, boat titles, land papers, and Ruth's last careful protections. People called me old. They called me confused. They called me attached. Attached, yes. I was attached to the woman who built a life with me one paid bill at a time. I was attached to the porch where she drank coffee. I was attached to the dock she called her front row. I was attached to promises made when nobody else was listening. But I was not helpless. I put the folder in a flat leather case and locked the house behind me. On the drive to Knoxville, my phone rang 3 times. Kelsey, Marla, Kelsey again. I let each call pass. At 9:15, when their buyer was supposed to walk through my house, nobody could get inside. The new locks were doing their small, honest job. At 9:22, Marla texted. The key doesn't work. I did not answer. At 9:24, Kelsey texted. This is cruel. I did not answer that either. At 9:26, Daniel called. Dad, he said, they're at the lake. Who? Kelsey, Marla, and the buyer's agent. Are you there? No. Good. Marla is furious. I expect so. She says you changed locks to sabotage us. I changed locks on my house. He was quiet. Then he said, "I'm going to the title office." "Alone?" "Yes." "Bring your license." He gave a tired laugh. Elaine asked for it. Elaine is good at her job. I pulled onto Kingston Pike. Traffic was already thick. Knoxville does not care about family trouble. It just keeps feeding cars through lights. Cumberland Title Services sat in a low brick office building between a dental practice and a tax preparer. The sign was blue with white letters. Clean, plain, the kind of place where people either bought a home or learned they could not. I parked near the side entrance at 9:46. I did not get out right away. I opened the leather case and checked the brown folder one more time. Deed, survivorship correction, restriction, Ruth's note. All there. Then I looked at my hands. They were old hands, scarred at the knuckles, thick in the fingers, a little stiff in the morning. Those hands had turned wrenches in winter bays, lifted heads off engines, held my wife when she was too tired to stand, and signed every honest paper I ever meant to sign. They were enough. I stepped out of the truck and walked toward the title office. Inside, the lobby smelled like copier toner and burnt coffee. Elaine Mercer looked up from behind the counter and did not smile. That told me more than a greeting would have. "Walter," she said. "Elaine. You have your license?" I took it from my shirt pocket and laid it flat. Sat down straight. She looked at the card, then at my face. "You're early. I like to hear engines before they fail." Her mouth tightened. "Then you'll want to see something." She did not hand it over in the lobby. She took me through a side door into a small copy room with a shred bin, a filing cabinet, and one chair. I stayed standing. She closed the door, then pulled a document from a blue file. "Came in by email at 8:58, she said. I read the top line. Family intent and authority statement. That title had no law in it. It had perfume on it. "Who sent it?" I asked. "Marla Voss." "Of course." Elaine pointed to the bottom. "It has Daniel's typed name. No signature? Electronic acknowledgement." I read the paragraph above it. It said, "Daniel Harlan was acting with the understanding of all family parties, including elder parent Walter Harlan, who had expressed sentimental hesitation but no legal objection. Elder parent." There was that soft little knife again. "She used those words before," I said. Elaine watched me. "There's more." She turned the page. The second page had a letterhead from Voss Events and Design. I had seen that name on Marla's van. Under it was a line that made my jaw lock. "Pre-funded venue hold secured by pending family property proceeds. Amount listed was $36,000. "That went to escrow?" I asked. "It went to the buyer's lender, the venue, and our closing packet." "Why?" "Because someone wanted everyone comfortable." Comfortable. I almost laughed. A boat sinks faster when everybody agrees not to look at the bilge. Elaine lowered her voice. "Walter, she represented proceeds as pending. Pending from my house." "Yes." "And she did it before closing." "Yes." I folded my hands around the handle of the leather case. Who else has seen this? Preston Wales' agent, his lender, the venue contact, maybe their underwriting department. "Good." Elaine blinked once. "Good? Lies need witnesses." She looked toward the hall. "They're all coming." "I know. I can stop this now." "No. Walter, I didn't come here for a quiet correction." She held my eye. Elaine had owned a 32-foot Sea Ray once, and I had kept that engine alive 3 summers longer than it deserved. She knew my voice when I was finished moving. "What do you want read today?" she asked. "Everything they relied on." "That room will get loud." "Rooms don't scare me." A car door slammed outside, then another. Elaine glanced through the small window in the copy room door. "Marla's here," she said. I put Daniel's typed authority statement back in the folder, then let her bring her tools. Elaine opened the door first. I followed her down the hall to the conference room, but we did not go in yet. Through the glass wall I saw Kelsey standing beside Marla, both of them dressed like they were going to a luncheon. Kelsey had a cream coat over her arm. Marla had a red folder pressed to her chest. Preston Wales stood by the table with his agent, a woman in a navy jacket. Preston was about 50, tall, narrow, clean-shaven, and already annoyed. He had a phone in one hand and a cashier's check envelope in the other. That envelope was thick enough to matter. Daniel was not there yet. Marla saw me and put on a face. You know the face. The one people use when they want a witness to believe they have been patient with you. "Walter," she said through the doorway. "Thank God." I stepped into the room. "Morning." Kelsey looked at my leather case, then at my eyes. "Why wouldn't the key work?" "Because it wasn't my key." Marla gave a short laugh. "This isn't the place." "It appears to be exactly the place." Preston looked between us. "Can someone explain that?" Marla turned before I could answer. "Just a family access issue. It's being handled." "Access issue?" I asked. Her smile thinned. "Walter, please sit down." I stayed where I was. Elaine entered behind me with the blue file and said, "No one signs until identification is complete." Kelsey looked at the empty chair beside her. "Daniel is on his way." "He should be here," Elaine said. Marla pulled out her phone. "He's nervous. This has been hard on him." I looked at Kelsey. "Where did he sleep last night?" Her cheeks changed color. "That's private." "Then don't call it family." Preston's agent cleared her throat. "We have a funding cutoff at 11:30. Elaine nodded. "I'm aware." Preston set the envelope on the table. "I've got a cashier's check for $54,600 plus wired earnest money already sitting in escrow. I don't enjoy surprises." "How much earnest?" I asked. He looked at me like I was the wrong person to ask. Elaine answered anyway. $25,000. I looked at Marla. "You knew that?" Marla's eyes flashed. "The buyer's financing isn't your concern." "My house is." Preston straightened. "Your house?" Kelsey said. "Walter, don't start." I heard Ruth in that sentence, not her voice, her absence. The girl sitting at that table had stood on Ruth's dock once and called the view magical. Now she talked about the place like it was a purse being returned late. Marla laid her red folder on the table. "This is why we tried to keep this simple. Walter gets confused when emotional issues come up." Confused. There it was, sitting in the room with shoes on. I looked at Elaine. "Please mark that word." Elaine picked up a pen. "Noted." Marla frowned. "Mark what?" "The reason given," Elaine said. "For the record." "For what record?" Kelsey asked. Elaine's voice stayed level. "The closing file." Preston's agent sat down slowly. That woman understood paperwork better than Preston did. I could see it in the way she stopped touching her phone. Marla opened her red folder. "We have emails. We have family understanding. We have Daniel's acknowledgement. Everyone knew Walter needed help letting go." "Help," I said. Kelsey looked at me hard. "You're making this ugly." "No," I said. "I'm letting it be seen." The front door opened down the hall. Daniel came in wearing yesterday's shirt and carrying a folded motel receipt. He looked older than he had at my kitchen table. That did not please me. It just told me the first wall had fallen on him. Kelsey stood. "Where were you?" "At a motel." Marla made a sound like he had embarrassed her on purpose. "Daniel, sit down." He did not sit. Elaine stepped forward. "Mr. Harlan, I need your license." Daniel handed it to her. His hand shook. Kelsey whispered, "We need to talk." "We're talking here," Daniel said. That was the first straight thing I had heard from him in days. Marla snapped her folder shut. "This is not productive." Preston gave a dry laugh. "Lady, I drove from Farragut for a closing. Productive would be nice." Elaine checked Daniel's license against the file. "Daniel, did you submit an electronic family authority statement this morning?" Daniel looked at her. "No." Marla's face changed before her words did. Elaine turned a page. "Did you authorize Marla Voss to send one using your name?" "No." Kelsey took one step toward him. "Daniel." He looked at her. "Did you?" Kelsey's mouth opened, then closed. Marla lifted both hands. It was a draft. We were clarifying intent. "With my name?" Daniel asked. "You told me your father was impossible. I didn't tell you to sign for me." "I didn't sign. It's typed." Elaine said, "Electronic acknowledgement can still be a representation." Marla turned on her. "Are you giving legal advice?" "No," Elaine said. "I'm identifying risk." Preston's agent pushed her chair back. "I'd like a copy of that statement." "You'll get one through proper channels," Elaine said. Preston looked at Marla. You told me the family was aligned. They are, Marla said. No, Daniel said. That single word landed heavier than any speech. Kelsey looked like he had slapped the table, though he had not touched anything. Daniel, she said, think about us. I am. Are you? He turned to her. Show me the loan papers. Her eyes filled fast. I had seen that before too. Tears can be honest. They can also be tools. A mechanic learns not to blame smoke for the fire until he finds the wire. Marla stepped between them. This is between the couple. No, I said. It became bigger when you pledged proceeds. Preston looked at Elaine. Pledged what? Elaine held up the second page. There is a representation in the file that a $36,000 venue hold was pre-funded against expected family property proceeds. Preston's agent leaned forward. Against sale proceeds? Elaine said, that is how it reads. Preston stared at Marla. You used my purchase to secure a wedding venue? Marla's voice rose. That is a complete distortion. Then read it, he said. Elaine looked at me. I gave her one small nod. Not the deed, not the title page, not yet. Just the first rotten board. Elaine read the Voss Events paragraph in a plain voice. She read the amount. She read the words pending family property proceeds. Then she set the page down. The room went still, but not quiet. Phones buzzed, chairs creaked. Kelsey breathed through her mouth. Daniel stared at the table like the grain had started spelling his name. Preston said, I was told this sale had no contingencies beyond standard title. Elaine said, that's what the contract packet states. Then why am I looking at this? Because it was submitted. Marla took the page from Elaine before Elaine could stop her. This is proprietary. Elaine's voice sharpened. Put that down. Marla froze. I had never heard Elaine use that tone. It was not loud. It was better than loud. It had rules behind it. Marla placed the page back on the table. Fine. Daniel looked at Kelsey. Did your mom borrow against the wedding? Kelsey wiped under one eye. It wasn't borrowing. What was it? A hold. With whose money? Kelsey looked at Marla. Marla said, everybody does this. I said, everybody who owns the asset might. Marla turned toward me. You are enjoying this. No? Yes, you are. I looked at my son before I answered. No father enjoys watching his boy learn the floor is hollow. Daniel's jaw tightened. He did not look away. Preston's agent asked Elaine, is the seller present? That question moved through the room like a wrench dropped on concrete. Marla said, Daniel is family representative. Elaine said, that is not what she asked. Preston turned to Daniel. Are you the seller? Daniel closed his eyes. I thought I had authority. Preston said, that's not an answer. Daniel opened his eyes and looked at me. No. Kelsey sat down hard. Daniel. No, he said again. I'm not the seller. Marla grabbed her phone. We need counsel. You should have had counsel before 8:58, Elaine said. That one got through. Marla's hand stopped above the screen. I watched her then. I watched the planner, the coordinator, the woman who knew where every centerpiece went and which napkin matched which plate. She had built the wedding like a stage set over a drain hole. $88,000 for a Saturday night. $12,400 for flowers, $9,800 for photographs, $6,000 for a string trio nobody in our family asked for, $36,000 already used to hold the venue. Now the house money she counted on had a question mark sitting over it. She looked at me and tried one more road. Walter, she said softer now, you love your son. I do. You loved Ruth. I felt Daniel look at me. Marla kept going. Ruth would not want Daniel humiliated. No, I said. She wouldn't. Then help him. I am. By destroying his wedding? By showing him the invoice before he buys the engine. Preston muttered, what does that even mean? It means noise can sound like power until you open the cover. Elaine looked at Preston. We need to step through the file. Preston's agent nodded. Agreed. Marla sat down as if she still owned the chair. Fine. Step through it. Kelsey reached for Daniel's hand. He did not give it to her. That small refusal hurt him. I saw it. I did not rescue him from it. Elaine gathered the pages and put them in order. First, we confirm identity. Second, we confirm authority. Third, we confirm title. Fourth, we confirm payoff, escrow, and disbursement. That's standard, Preston's agent said. Elaine looked at Marla. The file contains a representation that Daniel Harlan could act for family interests. Marla said, he could. Daniel said, I couldn't. You told me your mother left it to the family, Marla said. I said I didn't know. You said Walter was hiding papers. Daniel looked at me. I said Dad had papers. Marla pointed at him. Exactly. That's not the same thing, he said. Kelsey whispered, Stop fighting her. Daniel turned toward her slowly. Why? Because she's trying to save us. No, he said. She's trying to save the bill. That was new. That was my son finding the nut under the grease. Marla stood again. I will not be insulted by a man who was perfectly happy letting my daughter plan a wedding with no support from his side. I looked at her. No support? Her eyes flicked to me. She had forgotten I had invoices too. I opened my leather case, but I did not take out the brown folder. I took out the plain white packet from my kitchen table. Daniel saw it. So did Kelsey. I laid one page on the table. $4,500 for the rehearsal dinner deposit. Paid by me. Kelsey's face went blank. I laid down another. $2,200 for the dress balance. Paid by me after Kelsey called Ruth's ring sentimental and said she didn't want to sell it. Kelsey, Daniel said. Kelsey looked down. Another page. $875 for invitations because your printer declined the card. Marla said, Those were gifts. They were. Then why list them? Because you said no support. I placed another page. $6,000 toward Daniel's truck repair after he missed work helping with the venue walkthrough. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Dad. I kept my voice even. $3,000 for the photographer's second deposit. $1,200 for the lakeside engagement dinner. $940 for hotel rooms for your Tampa cousins. Marla folded her arms. Petty. No, I said. Measured. Preston's agent looked at the stack. She understood ledgers. Most people who handle closings do. I put the last page down. Total from my checking, $20,915. Kelsey stared at the total. Daniel whispered, I didn't know. I know. Marla said, You gave those freely. I did. Then they don't matter. They matter when you call me absent. Kelsey finally looked at me. Why didn't you tell me you paid those? Because a gift with a receipt stapled to it isn't a gift, until someone lies about the gift. Elaine let the quiet sit for a moment. Then she said, We still need authority. Preston tapped the cashier's envelope. Yes, we do. Marla took a breath. She had lost the family story, so she moved to the business story. Authority can be cured. Walter is here. Daniel is here. If everyone signs, this closes. Kelsey nodded fast. Right. We can still fix it. Daniel looked at me, and I saw the boy who once held a flashlight under a boat while I changed a starter. He wanted me to say the hard thing for him. I would not. Some parts have to be lifted by the man who owns them. Elaine asked, Daniel, do you intend to sign anything today? He swallowed. No. Kelsey made a small sound. Daniel, please. He looked at her. I don't know what I'm signing for. You're signing for us. I asked for loan papers. Marla cut in. There are no loan papers in his name. That was too quick. Elaine's pen stopped. I turned my head. In his name? Marla's lips pressed together. Preston's agent said, Whose name then? Kelsey stood. This isn't part of the sale. Daniel's voice went low. Whose name? Marla said, Mine. The room changed again. Daniel stared at her. You borrowed the $36,000? It was a bridge arrangement. With who? Marla did not answer. I said, The UCC filing name's Crestline Private Finance. Preston's agent looked at Elaine. That's in the file? Elaine said, Not in the original packet. I pulled the copy from my white packet and slid it to Elaine. She read the top line and then looked at Marla. Marla Voss, Elaine said. Debtor. Marla's neck tightened. Elaine read farther. Collateral description includes receivables, event deposits, and anticipated disbursement from Harlan Lake transaction. Preston pushed back from the table. Anticipated disbursement? His agent put a hand near his elbow. Preston, no, he said. I wired earnest money into a mess? Elaine said, your escrow funds are held by the title company. That's not my point. Marla snapped, your funds are secure. Preston looked at her. I don't take comfort from you. Kelsey turned on her mother. You said it was covered. It is covered, Marla said. By what? Marla looked at me. There it was. The whole scaffolding. My house was not their dream. It was their collateral. Ruth's porch was a payment source. My dock was a line item. The kitchen table where Daniel told me he had sold it was just the last stop on a road Marla paved before anyone asked the owner. I did not feel hot. I felt clear. Elaine said, we need to pause signing until counsel reviews these representations. Marla seized on the word. So you are delaying? No, Elaine said. I'm refusing to ignore new information. That's a delay. That's a boundary. Preston's agent stood. My buyer needs a written status before noon. You'll have it, Elaine said. Marla grabbed her red folder. Then we're calling the venue. Daniel looked up. Why? Because if this closing fails, they need to know who caused it. I turned to Kelsey. Call them. She blinked. What? Call the venue. Put it on speaker. Marla shook her head. Absolutely not. You wanted witnesses, I said. Let's use yours. Kelsey's hand trembled around her phone. Mom? Marla's face had gone hard. Do not. Daniel said, call them. Kelsey looked between them. That was the first time I saw her understand there might be two futures, and both had a bill attached. She called. The line rang 3 times. A woman answered with a polished voice. Whitestone Hall, this is Aubrey. Kelsey swallowed. Hi, Aubrey. It's Kelsey Voss. Oh, hi, Kelsey. Marla reached for the phone. Kelsey stepped back. Kelsey said, I'm here at Cumberland Title. We have a question about the venue hold. Aubrey paused. Is your mother with you? Yes. Then I should speak with Marla. Daniel said, no, speaker is fine. Aubrey's voice changed. I'm sorry. Who is this? Daniel Harlan. Another pause. Then Aubrey said, Daniel, we received assurance that the property disbursement was scheduled today. Preston said, unbelievable. Marla hissed, enough. Kelsey's eyes filled again. Aubrey, what happens if there's no disbursement? Aubrey did not answer right away. Papers moved on her end. Your contract requires the balance by 5 p.m. Monday. The current balance is $41,750 after deposits. Daniel's face drained. I thought the whole wedding was $88. It is, Kelsey said. Aubrey said, the total contracted event package is $88,000 even. Amount paid to date is $46,250. I looked at Marla. Where did the extra $10,250 come from? Marla said nothing. Kelsey whispered, Mom? Aubrey said, we have payments from Voss Events, 1 cashier's check, and 1 third-party finance transfer. Elaine wrote that down. Marla pointed at Kelsey's phone. Hang up. Daniel said, don't. Aubrey's voice grew careful. Is there a concern about funding? I said, there is a concern about representation. Who is speaking? Walter Harlan. Aubrey went silent. I did not raise my voice. Did anyone at your venue verify I owned the property being used for that assurance? Marla lunged for the phone then. Daniel caught her wrist without force, just enough to stop her hand. Then he let go at once, like he had touched something sharp. Mom, Kelsey said. Aubrey said, Mr. Harlan, we were told this was a family-directed sale. By whom? Aubrey hesitated. Elaine said, this is Elaine Mercer, senior title notary at Cumberland Title. The call is on speaker in a room with the parties present. Please answer only what you're comfortable answering. Aubrey exhaled. By Marla Voss. Kelsey lowered the phone slowly. Marla sat down. For the first time that morning, she had no line ready. Preston looked at Elaine. I want my earnest protected in writing. It is, Elaine said, and you'll get written confirmation. Aubrey said, do we need to involve our risk department? Elaine looked at me. I did not nod this time. I did not need to. Daniel said, yes. Kelsey flinched. Daniel looked at her. I'm sorry, but yes. Aubrey said, I'll document the call and notify them. Marla found her voice. Aubrey, this is premature. Aubrey's reply was polite and cold. Marla, I'll have Risk contact you. The call ended. Kelsey stood with the phone in her hand. Nobody moved for a few seconds. Then she looked at Daniel with a small, frightened anger. You ruined it, she said. Daniel's face twisted. I ruined it? You could have waited. For what? For us to get through the wedding. With what money? She looked at me then, and I could see the old text still sitting in her. Too old to need it. Need. She had thought need meant leverage. She had thought an old man with a paid-off house must be the softest person in the room. I picked up my white packet and put the pages back in order. Date, source, signature, copy. That was how you keep a life from being rewritten by people in nicer clothes. Marla stood again, slower this time. Walter, we can still make an arrangement. No, you haven't heard it. I heard enough. You could sell and hold some proceeds until this settles. No. Or lease it to Preston for now. Preston said, leave me out of that. Marla ignored him. You could give Daniel an advance against inheritance. Daniel's head came up. Mom, stop. She turned on him. Do you want to lose everything? He said, I don't know what everything is anymore. That stopped her longer than anger would have. Elaine closed the blue file. We are not proceeding to signing at this moment. Marla's eyes narrowed. At this moment? Elaine said, I still have to complete the file review. I knew what she meant. The title page still waited. The deed still waited. Ruth's note still waited in the brown folder inside my leather case. But that was not for this half-lit room while people were still pretending the roof might hold. Preston's agent looked at her watch. Can we reconvene once title counsel has reviewed? Elaine said, we can stay in this office today. But no one signs until authority and title are clear. Marla said, title is clear. Elaine looked at her for a long second. You haven't seen the title commitment read yet. Marla looked at me. Have you been planning this? I thought about Ruth's note. I thought about Daniel at the motel. I thought about the first text, the new lock, the fake authority statement, the venue call, and the $36,000 hole Marla had dug under my house. No, I said. I've been keeping records. Daniel sat down then, not beside Kelsey, not beside Marla. He sat across from me. Dad, he said. I waited. He rubbed both hands on his knees. What happens now? Elaine answered before I did. Now we put the right documents on the table. I looked at the leather case by my chair. Marla saw me look. So did Kelsey. So did Daniel. Nobody spoke. From somewhere in the office, the copier started running again, one page at a time, clean, flat, and loud enough for every person in that room to hear. Elaine reached for the blue file again, but she did not open it. She looked at me first. Walter, she said, before I read title, I need to ask you something. Marla made a sharp little sound. Why does he get special treatment? Elaine did not look at her. Because his name is in the file. I kept my hands folded on the leather case. Ask it. Did you authorize anyone to market, list, pledge, assign, or otherwise represent this property for sale? No. Did you sign any power of attorney? No. Did you give Daniel verbal authority to act for you? Daniel looked down at the table. I said, no. Elaine wrote those 3 answers on a yellow pad. Her handwriting was small and hard to hurry. Marla said, verbal authority can be misunderstood. It can, Elaine said. That's why I'm writing down what he said. Kelsey wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand. She had stopped crying the full way now. She was in that hard little place after tears, where pride starts building a wall around fear. You're all making this sound criminal, she said. Nobody answered right away. That word sat there because nobody needed to dress it up. Daniel finally said, Kelsey, what did you think was happening? She looked at him. I thought your dad would sign. Why? Because you said he would. I said I hoped he would understand. That means sign, Daniel. No, he said. It means ask. Marla leaned toward her daughter. Do not let him rewrite this. Daniel turned to her. I'm trying to read it for the first time. That line hit me harder than I expected. My son was 38 years old, and there he was, learning the difference between a promise and a sales pitch in a room full of strangers. Elaine turned one page in the blue file. There's a seller questionnaire. Marla's eyes moved to the page before Elaine read it. I noticed that. When a pump is about to lose pressure, you hear the change before the gauge tells you. Marla's face had that same drop in it. Not panic, not yet. Just the first bad sound. Elaine said, "Question 1. Is the property owner living?" Marla cut in. That form was preliminary. Elaine kept her eyes on the paper. The answer marked is yes. Preston's agent leaned forward. Who filled it out? Elaine checked the bottom. Submitted through the transaction portal by Voss Events Administrative Email. Kelsey said, "Mom?" Marla said, "My assistant handles paperwork." Daniel said, "You don't have an assistant anymore." Marla stared at him. That was another nut loosening. He said it quietly, but he said it in front of everyone. "You told me you let Jenna go in March." Marla's mouth worked once. "Part-time. She still helps." "Then call her." "No." "Why?" "Because this is not a trial." Preston said, "It's starting to feel like one." Elaine raised one hand and the room settled. She had that title office kind of authority, not courtroom authority, not church authority, just the authority of a woman who had seen too many people lie badly over land. She read again. Question 2. Is any owner under guardianship, conservatorship, or medical incapacity review? I looked at Marla. She did not look back. Elaine said, "The answer marked is no." Daniel's head came up. "Medical review?" Marla said, "Standard question." Elaine said, "There is also an uploaded note." Kelsey reached for the edge of the table. "What note?" Elaine did not open the next page yet. She looked at me again. "Walter, this may concern you." I figured. Marla said, "You don't have permission to read private medical material." Elaine's voice cooled again. "Then you should not have uploaded it into a title transaction." Marla went still. Preston's agent said, "Elaine, is this relevant to closing?" "It is if someone used it to explain why the supposed owner was not attending earlier steps." I sat there and felt something old and ugly step into the room, confused. That was the word Marla had liked for me. She said it at dinner, she said it to Daniel, she said it soft enough that it sounded like concern if you wanted it to. Confused. As if 50 years of torque specs and tax ledgers had leaked out of my head because I wore old boots. Elaine lifted the page. "This is not a diagnosis. It's a visit summary from Volunteer Family Clinic. It states Mr. Harlan attended for dizziness after dehydration last August. It does not state incompetence." Daniel stared at Marla. "You used that?" Marla said, "I used nothing." Elaine turned the page around so the typed line faced the room. She did not hand it to anyone. Someone highlighted the phrase, quote, "temporary disorientation." Kelsey whispered, "Mom." Marla snapped, "He was disoriented." I said, "For 20 minutes. You forgot where you parked." "I was standing beside your car." Daniel looked at me. "I kept going because he needed the whole bolt, not half the threads. You drove me to that clinic after I worked 6 hours in 95-degree heat fixing the winch at the boat shed." Marla said, "You shouldn't have been working alone." I wasn't alone. Carl Moody was with me. Elaine wrote that down too. Witness name? Carl Moody. He owns Moody Storage on Route 58. Marla's hands tightened around her red folder. "This is ridiculous." "No," I said. "This is dated." Daniel rubbed his mouth. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" "You didn't ask me. You asked her." That landed where it needed to land. Kelsey looked from Daniel to me. "You're acting like we attacked you." I looked at her phone still lying face up on the table. "You texted me I was too old to need my house." Her lips parted, then closed. "I didn't mean it like that," she said. "That's the trouble with writing things down," I said. "They stop improving in your memory." Marla stood again. "We're leaving." Elaine said, "You may leave. The file remains." Marla turned toward the door. Kelsey. Kelsey did not move. That surprised me. It surprised Marla more. "Kelsey," Marla said again. Kelsey stared at the table. "How much do we lose Monday?" Marla's face changed. "That's not the right question." "It is to me." Daniel said, "Ask it." Kelsey swallowed. "How much?" Marla looked toward Elaine as if Elaine had caused the number. The venue balance is $41,750. Kelsey shook her head. No, if it fails. Marla did not answer. Kelsey said, Mom, Marla said there are liquidated damages. How much? Potentially the full contract. Kelsey sat down slowly. 88,000? Potentially, Marla said. Preston muttered, Good Lord. Kelsey looked like someone had pulled the floor 1 inch lower without warning. You said the deposit protected us. It protected the date. With whose money? Marla's voice went flat. Mine. Daniel said, Crestline's. She turned on him. You don't understand finance. I understand debt. No, Daniel. You understand being scared. He looked at her for a long second. Maybe I should have been scared sooner. Elaine set the medical page aside in a separate stack. There is another issue. Marla laughed once. It was not a happy sound. Of course there is. Elaine ignored that. The buyer's side received an estimated settlement statement. Preston's agent nodded. We did. Elaine said, My file contains a version with a seller proceeds line. She slid a copy to the center. I did not lean over. I already knew what it said. I had seen the number in the packet I pulled from the county index and the email printout Daniel had forwarded without reading. Preston read it first. Seller proceeds estimated at $463,218. Kelsey's eyes widened. That much? I looked at her then, not angry, just tired. That house sits on lakefront land, I said. 2 acres, dock permit, rebuilt roof, new septic field, clear driveway easement. Marla said, and deferred maintenance. I almost smiled. Name it. She blinked. What? Name the deferred maintenance. The porch is old. I replaced the joists in April. Treated 2x10s. $1,460. Marla said nothing. The roof? She looked away. Architectural shingles, $29,700. Paid in full. The septic? Elaine's pen moved again. I kept my voice even. New field line and pump chamber, $17,900. Dock boards and cables, $6,300. Heat pump, $8,800. Well service, $925. Daniel closed his eyes. I said, That's not deferred. That's maintained. Preston's agent looked at me like she had just realized the old man at the end of the table might know every board in the place. Marla lifted her chin. Then it's a valuable asset. It is. And Daniel is your only child. He is. So this could still be resolved inside the family. Daniel said, Stop using that word. Marla looked at him. Family? Resolved. He sounded older when he said it, not better, just older. Elaine tapped the settlement statement. The estimated proceeds were used in 2 places. One is the ordinary seller line. The second is an instruction note. Preston's agent leaned closer. What instruction note? Elaine read, Disbursement anticipated to satisfy third-party event finance hold. Amount $36,000, payable per seller side instruction prior to net family distribution. Kelsey covered her mouth. Daniel stared at the paper. Seller side instruction. Elaine said, Yes. He looked at Marla. Did you write that? Marla said, It was draft language. Did you write it? I coordinated it. With who? People who do this every day. I said, People with names. She glared at me. You've had your fun. No, I said. I've had coffee in a folder. Preston's agent pulled out her phone. I'm calling my broker. Elaine said, Please step into the hallway. No, he needs to hear this. Preston shook his head. Call her here. His agent hesitated, then dialed. The speaker crackled, and a woman answered with road noise behind her. Linda Graves. It's Tessa at Cumberland Title. Preston's file has a seller authority problem and a third-party proceeds instruction. Linda said, Say that again. Tessa looked at Elaine. Elaine nodded once. Tessa said, The apparent seller isn't the owner. There's also a note pledging $36,000 from expected proceeds to event finance. Linda's voice sharpened. Is the owner present? Tessa looked at me. Yes. Is he signing? I said, No. Linda heard me. Sir, this is Linda Graves, broker for the buyer's side. Did you list your property? No, ma'am. Did you accept an offer? No. Did you authorize showings? Marla said, there were no interior showings. Linda paused. Who is that? Elaine said, Marla Voss. Linda said, the same Marla who sent the lake photographs? Kelsey turned to her mother. Marla closed her eyes for 1 second. Daniel said, photographs? Tessa said, Linda, please explain. Linda's voice came through crisp now. We received exterior photographs, dock photographs, parcel map, and a representation that interior access would occur after family notice. The buyer made the offer contingent on walkthrough. Preston looked at Marla. You sold me pictures? Marla said, you made an offer on a property you wanted. I made an offer because I thought somebody could sell it. Linda said, Tessa, did your office receive an agency agreement? Elaine said, we have a listing confirmation, but not a signed owner listing. Linda said a word under her breath, then caught herself. Send me written freeze status. No one moves my buyer's earnest without written mutual release or legal instruction. Elaine said, understood. Linda added, and if Mr. Harlan didn't authorize those photographs, preserve the file. I said, thank you. Linda's tone softened just a little. Sir, I'm sorry this got this far. Marla said, that apology is premature. Linda replied, no, it's professional. The call ended. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the old wall clock and someone laughing in the hallway outside. The laugh felt like it belonged to another building. Daniel looked at Kelsey. You knew about the pictures? She shook her head fast. No. Your mother sent them. I didn't know. Marla said they were public-facing photographs. I said, one was taken from my dock. She looked at me. I held her eyes. The angle shows the south cleat and Ruth's blue chair. Daniel turned toward me. Blue chair. Your mother's chair. He looked at the table like he could see it there. Ruth's little aluminum chair with the faded blue webbing had sat on that dock for 11 years. She used to rest one foot on the lower rail and tell me whether a boat engine sounded rich or lean. She was wrong half the time, but she said it with confidence. I did not say all that in the room. Some things do not belong in front of people who price them by the foot. Kelsey said, Mom, did you go out there? Marla did not answer. Daniel's voice dropped. Did you take Kelsey there? Kelsey looked confused. What? He looked at her. The Sunday you said you were at a cake tasting. Kelsey's face changed. Daniel! Marla said, enough. Daniel stood. Did you use my key? That was the next rung. I had been waiting for it. Marla said, you gave Kelsey a key for emergencies. Daniel stared at Kelsey. Kelsey whispered, Mom said we needed measurements. For what? For layout. What layout? Marla slammed her palm on the table, not hard enough to hurt the table, hard enough to remind everyone she still wanted command. The rehearsal dinner, she said. We considered using the lake house for the rehearsal dinner before Walter made everything difficult. I looked at her. You considered using my house without asking me? It was for your son. No, I said. It was for your invoice. Elaine asked, were any vendors given access to the property? Marla froze again. Kelsey said, just one. Daniel shut his eyes. Kelsey, a florist, she said, and the rental man. They measured the driveway. Preston said, you had vendors on property you didn't own? Marla said, it was not harmful. I leaned back. My knees hurt from sitting still, but I did not move them. Did they go inside? I asked. Kelsey looked at Daniel, then at me. No. I knew she was telling the truth as far as she knew. So I looked at Marla. She looked away. Daniel caught it. Mom. Marla said, I am not your mother. He did not blink. Good. That was the cleanest sentence he had spoken all morning. Kelsey flinched like he had slapped the air between them. Elaine set her pen down. I need to ask this plainly. Was any lock changed? Marla said, no. I opened the side pocket of my leather case and took out a small envelope. Not the brown folder, not yet. Just a white envelope with the hardware store receipt folded around a brass key. I placed it on the table. Daniel stared at it. What is that? Receipt from Cedar Bluff Hardware, I said. 2 new Schlager cylinders, bought by Kelsey Voss. Kelsey's face went pale. Mom told me you approved it. Daniel looked at her. You changed Dad's locks? I thought he knew. Elaine picked up the receipt only after I nodded. Date? Monday, I said. Elaine read it. 2 days before scheduled closing. Marla's voice came back small and sharp. It was temporary. I said, a lock either turns or it doesn't. Kelsey whispered, I'm sorry. I believed that one. Not because it fixed anything, because it sounded like it cost her something. Daniel sat back down, hard. Dad, why didn't you call me? I wanted to see where the key went. He looked sick. And where did it go? I touched the envelope. Into my folder. Elaine looked at me for a long second. She understood the line. Date, source, signature, copy. Marla said, You were setting us up. No, I said. I was letting you finish your own paperwork. Preston stood and walked to the window. His shoulders were tight under his sport coat. He had come there to buy a lake house, maybe brag about a dock and a view by supper. Now he was standing in a Knoxville title office learning he had been used as weight on someone else's lever. He turned back. I want to know if I trespassed. Marla said, You never entered the house. That's not what I asked. Elaine said, Preston, your broker will guide you. For now, all we can say is the owner states he did not authorize showings or access. Preston looked at me. Mr. Harlan, I never would have stepped on your land if I knew. I know. You do? I nodded. You asked straight questions. You got crooked answers. He swallowed and sat down again. Kelsey looked at me with something new in her face. Not love, not respect yet. More like the first time a person sees the wall they leaned on was somebody's back. She said, Walter, I didn't know about the finance transfer. I looked at Daniel. Did you? No. Then I looked back at her. Did you know your mother was calling me confused? Kelsey's mouth tightened. She said you were struggling. With what? With Ruth, with grief, with papers. I felt that one under the ribs. Daniel said, Kelsey. She started crying again, quieter this time. That's what she said. Marla said, and I was right. He is still living in a house built around a woman who is gone. The room went silent. Even Elaine stopped writing. My hand went to the leather case before I thought about it. My fingers found the edge of the brown folder through the side leather. I did not pull it out, not yet. Ruth's note was clipped inside. I knew the pressure of that little paper clip. I had felt it in the boat shed when I read her words out loud to nobody but myself. Do not let anyone make this place smaller than our life. I let my hand rest there, then took it away. Daniel saw the movement. He did not know what it meant, but he knew it meant something. I said, Marla, you don't get to use my wife as a broom. Her eyes narrowed. A what? Something to sweep with. Kelsey whispered, Mom, stop. Marla turned on her. You wanted this wedding. I wanted Daniel. No, Daniel said quietly. You wanted both. That's fair. But this wasn't the way. Kelsey looked at him. Are you leaving me? He did not answer fast. That was answer enough for the moment. Elaine closed the side stack and placed both palms on the blue file. We need title counsel on the line. Marla said, Finally. Elaine looked at her. Not for the reason you think. She picked up the office phone and pressed 3 buttons. Gary, it's Elaine. I need you in conference room 2 or by phone now. Harlan file. Yes, that Harlan. No, it cannot wait. She listened. Then she said, Because the owner is present, the buyer is present, and the file contains medical material, a proceeds pledge, and possible unauthorized access. Marla's face had no color under the makeup now. Elaine hung up. He's coming down. Marla seized on that. Good. Counsel can explain that families cure misunderstandings all the time. I said, This isn't a misunderstanding. You keep saying that, because I understand it. Daniel looked at me then. Dad, is there any path where you still sell? Kelsey held her breath. Marla watched me like a gambler watching the last card. I did not look at the blue file. I did not look at the settlement statement. I looked at my son. No, I said. His face folded a little, but he nodded. Kelsey made a small sound. Then Monday's gone. Marla snapped. Nothing is gone. I said, The money is. She turned to me. You don't know that. I know when a fuel line is dry. Elaine's phone buzzed. She read the screen and stood. Counsel is coming from the recording desk. Everyone stay seated, please. Marla reached for her red folder again. Elaine's eyes went to it. "Leave that on the table." Marla froze. "Excuse me?" "You referenced it in this transaction. It stays visible until counsel reviews whether we need copies." "You have no right," Elaine said. "Then counsel can tell me so in 3 minutes." Marla slowly set the folder down. That red folder had been her shield all morning. Now it looked like a flare sitting in the middle of the table. Daniel stared at it. "What's in there?" Marla said, "Wedding contracts." Kelsey said, "Open it." "No." "Mom, open it." Marla looked at her daughter then. There was anger there, but something else too. Calculation. She was weighing whether Kelsey was still useful to her. That hurt to watch. Kelsey saw it. Her face changed, like she had been slapped with cold water. She reached for the folder. Marla put her hand on top of it. "Don't." Daniel said, "Let her see." Marla said, "You've done enough." "No," Daniel said. "I haven't done enough. That's why we're here." The door opened before Marla could answer. A man in a gray suit stepped in with reading glasses in one hand. I knew him by sight. Gary Phelps, title counsel. He had once brought a Sea Ray into my shop with water in the fuel tank and argued with me for 10 minutes until I drained a quart into a glass jar and set it in front of him. He remembered me, too. "Walter?" he said. "Gary." He looked around the room. "I'm told we have a problem." Elaine said, "Several." Gary closed the door. "Start with authority." Elaine handed him the yellow notes, the seller questionnaire, the medical page, and the proceeds instruction. He read standing up. Nobody spoke while he did. Then he looked at Marla. "Mrs. Voss, are you represented by counsel today?" Marla lifted her chin. "Not in this room." "That wasn't the question." "No." Gary nodded. "Then I will be careful. You may also wish to be careful." Marla looked toward Kelsey, but Kelsey was staring at the red folder. Gary turned to me. "Walter, you did not authorize this sale?" "No." "You did not authorize Daniel?" "No." "You did not authorize Mrs. Voss?" "No." "You did not authorize property access?" "No." Gary nodded once. "Elaine, no signing, no disbursement. Freeze the file pending written review." Marla stood. "You can't just freeze a sale." Gary looked at her. "There is no sale." Preston breathed out through his nose. Gary continued. "There is an attempted transaction file. That is different." Daniel looked at the table. Kelsey said, "What happens to the wedding money?" Gary said, "That is outside title counsel's role." Marla said, "Convenient." Gary did not react. But if a third-party lender relied on expected proceeds from a transaction without owner authority, that lender may have questions. Marla said, "They won't." Elaine said, "They already will. The instruction is in our file." Gary looked at the red folder. "What is that?" Marla pulled it closer. "Personal contracts." Kelsey put her hand on the folder too. "It's my wedding." Marla stared at her. Kelsey's voice shook. "Open it." For a second, I thought Marla would refuse. Then she smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a woman changing rooms without moving. "Fine," she said. "You want to see adult consequences?" She opened the folder. The first page was Whitestone Hall. We knew that one. 88,000 even. Balance due Monday by 5 p.m. The second was Magnolia Floral. 12,400, 7,000 paid. Balance due on delivery. The third was Everett Lane Photography. 9,800, 3,000 outstanding. The fourth was Willow Glass Rentals. 4,600 for tables, linens, and chargers. Then Elaine reached for the next page and stopped. "What is this?" she asked. Marla said, "A vendor guarantee." Elaine turned it toward Gary. He read the top line. Then he looked at me and his eyes sharpened. Daniel leaned forward. "What?" Gary said, "It references the Harlan property." Kelsey whispered, "Again?" Gary read aloud. "Personal guarantee supported by anticipated family property sale, Pine Hollow Road Lake Parcel, estimated proceeds sufficient to satisfy event obligations." Daniel stood so fast his chair hit the wall. Marla said, "Sit down." He did not. He looked at Kelsey. "Did you sign that?" Kelsey stared at the page. "I don't know." "How do you not know?" I signed a stack. Elaine pointed to the signature line. This is Kelsey Voss. Kelsey covered her mouth. I thought that was for the rentals. Marla said, it was. Gary said, it is more than that. Daniel looked at Marla. You put her on it. She is the bride. You put your daughter on debt tied to my father's house. Marla snapped, your father was supposed to help. I said, there it is. She turned to me. What? Supposed to. The room understood it. Even Kelsey understood it. Not asked, not agreed. Supposed. Marla had built the whole thing on that word. I was supposed to sign. Daniel was supposed to obey. Kelsey was supposed to shine in the white dress. Preston was supposed to wire money. Elaine was supposed to stamp papers. Ruth was supposed to stay quiet because she was gone. Supposed can carry a lot of weight until one honest page lies flat on a table. Gary handed the guarantee back to Elaine. Copy that for the review file. Marla said, no. Gary looked at her. Then take the folder and leave, but this transaction remains frozen, and our written status will note the document was presented and withdrawn. Marla held his stare. Then she let go of the folder. Elaine stood and took it to the copier by the wall. The machine lit up green. Its lid opened and closed. One page slid through, then another. Kelsey sat with both hands in her lap. Daniel remained standing behind his chair, breathing hard through his nose. I wanted to tell him to sit. I wanted to tell him to slow down. A father wants to keep fixing the engine even after the block is cracked. But I stayed quiet. Some lessons have to make their own noise. Gary turned to me. Walter, do you have original ownership documents with you? The room tightened. Marla looked at my leather case. Kelsey looked at it too. Daniel did not. He looked at me. Elaine came back from the copier with the red folder pages and placed them beside the blue file. I put my hand on the leather case. For 1 second, I felt Ruth's note through the folder again. Small paper, small clip, big enough to hold me in place. Then I said, I have them. Gary nodded. When you are ready, we'll need to compare them against the commitment. Marla's eyes flashed. So he had them all along. I looked at her. Yes, I said. Daniel swallowed. Gary reached for the blue file. Elaine, bring up the title commitment. Elaine sat down and pulled the first page loose. I kept the brown folder inside the case. The room leaned toward that page like it had gravity. Elaine adjusted her glasses. She placed her finger on the first printed line, drew in one careful breath, and began to read. The commitment was issued by Volunteer State Title and Escrow, Elaine said. File number VST-8-7-4-1. Proposed insured, Preston Reed. Proposed seller, Walter Harlan. Marla cut in. That says proposed. It doesn't settle anything. Gary lifted one finger. Let her read. Elaine did not look up. Schedule A. Amount of insurance, $492,000. Property address, Pine Hollow Road, Cedar Bluff, Tennessee. Preston rubbed both hands over his face. That's the price. It was, I said. Elaine continued. Estate or interest to be insured, fee simple. Title is vested in Walter Harlan, a married man at time of acquisition, now surviving spouse by recorded correction affidavit. Daniel's head came up. Kelsey looked at him. What does that mean? Gary answered before anyone else could shape it crooked. It means title rests with Walter. Marla said, no, Ruth was on that property. Elaine turned the page halfway, then stopped. Ruth Harlan was named on the original purchase contract. She was removed from vesting by correction before recording. That's impossible, Marla said. I opened my leather case. Nobody spoke then. The zipper sounded louder than it should have. I took out the brown folder with the old crease at the top corner. Ruth had written Harlan Deed, Pine Hollow Road on the tab in blue ink. Her handwriting was small and straight. I had seen it on grocery lists, shop checks, birthday cards, and one note I had carried like a washer in my pocket. I placed the folder on the table. Marla stared at it. Where did you get that? From my safe. You kept it hidden. No, I said. I kept it filed. Gary stepped closer. May I? I opened the folder myself. I set the original deed on top. Then I set the correction affidavit beside it. The paper had yellowed a little near the fold. The county stamp was still clean enough. Elaine leaned over it. Recorded in Roane County. Book 1482. Page 611. Gary checked the commitment against the deed. That matches. Daniel whispered, Dad. I did not look at him yet. Marla reached toward the folder. Gary put his palm flat on the table between her hand and my papers. He did not touch her. Don't, he said. She pulled back. This is family. Gary said, This is title. Elaine read the next line. No conveyance may proceed absent execution by the sole vested owner, Walter Harlan. That was the room going quiet for the right reason. Kelsey was crying again, but she was not making a show of it. Preston had gone still. Daniel stood with both hands on the back of his chair. Marla looked from the deed to the blue file, then to me, searching for a loose screw. I knew that look. I had seen men give it to a dead engine after they had already stripped the threads. She said, Walter, don't do this. I laid Ruth's note on top of the deed. Daniel saw her handwriting and sat down slowly. Marla said, That isn't relevant. It is to me. Gary looked at the note, then away. He had enough sense not to read it. I touched the corner of the paper. Ruth wrote this before hospice got heavy. She knew people would turn memory into leverage. Daniel's mouth trembled. What does it say? I looked at him then. You've heard it once. You weren't listening. Kelsey wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. Please read it. I did not hand it around. I kept it under my fingers. Do not let anyone make this place smaller than our life, I said. That sentence sat there longer than any argument Marla had made. Then I looked at Kelsey. I looked at Daniel. Last, I looked at Marla. You were right about one thing, I said. I don't need it. I don't. But you never owned it. Marla's face tightened so hard I thought the skin might crack at the jaw. You let us get this far. I let the papers get here. You could have stopped it earlier. I could have, I said. Then you'd have called me confused again. Confused. That word had done a lot of work for her. It had walked into my bank, my house, my son's head, and now this room. It had carried her farther than truth would have. Elaine put the title commitment down. This closing is canceled. Gary corrected her softly. Frozen pending review. Elaine nodded. Frozen pending review. Preston stood. I want my earnest money back. Gary said, Your broker and escrow will handle that. Given the facts, I'd expect a claim. Marla said, Against who? Preston looked at her. Who do you think? Kelsey covered her mouth. Daniel said, How much earnest money? $24,600, Preston said, plus inspection, plus survey, plus a wire fee, plus a week of my time. Marla snapped, You'll be made whole. Preston laughed once. It had no humor in it. By who? The house I was buying doesn't exist. It exists, I said. He looked at me, and his anger eased a little. Not for sale, Mr. Harlan. No. Elaine's phone buzzed again. She looked at the screen, then at Gary. Escrow desk wants authorization on the outgoing wire hold. Gary said, Hold all wires. Document owner objection. Flag proceeds instruction as unauthorized. Marla stood. You can't flag my business. Gary said, The instruction names your business. It was a deposit arrangement. Elaine pulled one sheet from the copied red folder stack. It says pre-funded venue hold. There it was. Marla had used those words like clean linen, pre-funded, hold venue, words that made a bad thing look organized. Gary took the sheet. Read the amount. Elaine's voice stayed even. $36,000 in vendor deposits represented as secured by anticipated proceeds from sale of Harlan family property. Daniel said, 36. Kelsey whispered, Mom? Marla turned on Elaine. That paper belongs to me. Elaine said, You brought it to a closing file. I brought contracts. You brought representations. Gary picked up the office phone. Elaine, get the escrow supervisor in here. Marla said, No. Gary ignored her. And call Whitestone Hall's account contact. We're not discussing liability. We're confirming no title proceeds will fund that pledge. Kelsey stood then. Gary, wait. Marla grabbed her wrist. Sit down. Kelsey pulled free. No. It was the first real no I had heard from her. She looked younger than she had at my kitchen table. The polish had come off her voice. There was just a girl standing in a title office in Knoxville, learning her wedding had been built on somebody else's roof. Did you borrow that money? She asked. Marla said, I bridged it. With what? With business credit. Backed by this sale? Marla did not answer. Daniel said, "Answer her." Marla's eyes flashed. "You don't get to judge me. You came to me because your father wouldn't help." Daniel looked down at his hands. "I came because you said he already had." That shut her mouth for a second. Elaine stepped out and came back with a woman in a navy blazer. The woman had a badge clipped to her pocket. She did not sit. "I'm Sandra from escrow," she said. "I understand there's a disputed proceeds assignment." Gary handed her the sheet. "Owner denies authority. Title shows sole vested owner. No seller execution exists." Sandra read fast. Then she looked at Marla. "Are you Marla Voss?" Marla folded her arms. "Yes." "You submitted this vendor funding memo?" "My assistant did." "Under your account?" Marla hesitated. "Yes." Sandra looked at Elaine. "Freeze outgoing funds. Put a note on the vendor memo. No reliance letter issued. No payoff from this file." Elaine typed as Sandra spoke. Kelsey said, "What does that mean for Monday?" Sandra glanced at her. "It means Whitestone Hall should not expect this file to pay them." Marla said, "They were never expecting that directly." Sandra held up the page. "This says otherwise." Kelsey sat down again like her legs had lost their job. Daniel leaned toward her. "Kelsey." She shook her head. "Don't." He stopped. That was the first decent thing he had done for her that day. Sandra stepped to the phone on the side cabinet. "I'm calling Whitestone's receivables contact from our vendor verification sheet." Marla said, "This is harassment." Gary said, "It's risk control." Sandra dialed. We all heard the rings because the room had gone that quiet again. "This is Sandra with Volunteer State Title and Escrow," she said. "I'm calling about a vendor funding memo tied to a proposed Harlan property closing. Yes, Pine Hollow Road." Marla looked at the door. I think she thought about leaving. Then she looked at the red folder and stayed. Sandra listened. "No, there will be no seller proceeds released from this file. The owner is present and disputes authorization." She listened again. "No, ma'am, we cannot validate that representation." Kelsey closed her eyes. Sandra's voice changed a little. "I understand. That's between Whitestone Hall and the Voss account. We are documenting our call." She hung up. Marla said, "What did they say?" Sandra said, "They'll contact you." Kelsey asked, "Are they canceling?" "I don't know," Sandra said, "but they used the word review." Marla grabbed the red folder. Gary did not stop her this time because the copies were already made. "This meeting is over," she said. "No," Daniel said. She turned. "Excuse me?" He pushed the blue file toward Gary. "I want copies of what I signed." Gary looked at him. "You'll need to request through the proper party." "I'll sign whatever request." Marla said, "Daniel, don't be dramatic." He looked at her with a face I had not seen since he was 17 and ready to leave home for college. Scared, yes. Angry, yes. But upright. "You told me Dad was failing," he said. "You told me Ruth wanted me to have half. You told me Kelsey needed me to be a husband." Marla said she did. "No," Kelsey said. "Don't put me there." Marla stared at her daughter. "Everything I did was for you." Kelsey shook her head. "You did it for the room." "What?" "The room," Kelsey said. "The chandeliers, the photos, the people watching. You wanted them to see you standing in it." Marla's hand tightened around the red folder. "You have to understand that one landed harder than any legal word. People like Marla can fight paper. They can fight money. They can even fight a lawyer if the lawyer is polite enough. But a daughter seeing the truth out loud is a different kind of bill." Marla said, "You're tired." Kelsey stood. "I'm done." She took off her engagement ring and set it on the table. Daniel went pale. "Kelsey," she looked at him. "I don't know what we are, but I know what this is." Marla whispered, "Pick that up." Kelsey did not. The ring sat near the deed folder. It looked small there. $8,200. If I remembered what Daniel had bragged after he bought it. 14-karat white gold, oval diamond, payment plan through a jeweler on Kingston Pike. A man can remember numbers when his son says them with pride. Daniel did not pick it up either. Gary cleared his throat. "The title company will issue written notice. I recommend everyone speak with counsel." Preston pushed his chair in. "Mr. Harlan." I looked at him. I'm sorry this happened. You were buying what they showed you. I still should have asked more. That's a lesson, I said, not a sin. He nodded once and left the room. Sandra gathered her copies. Elaine, send me scans before close of business. Elaine said, I will. Marla pointed at me. Her hand shook now. You think you won. No. You ruined my daughter's wedding. Kelsey said, Mom, stop. Marla did not stop. You sat there like a stone while everything burned. I put Ruth's note back under the clip in the brown folder. No, I said. I sat there while the owner was identified. Marla's mouth opened, then closed. Daniel said, Dad, can we talk? Not here. Please. Not here, I said again. He nodded. It hurt him, but he nodded. Kelsey looked at me. Walter, I'm sorry about the text. I held the folder against my chest for a second before I put it away. I know. I shouldn't have sent it. No, you shouldn't have believed it. She flinched, but she took it. Marla laughed under her breath. Listen to him, St. Walter now. Gary looked at her. Mrs. Voss, we're done. That was not loud. It did not need to be. Marla swept the red folder into her arms and walked out first. Kelsey did not follow right away. She stood in the doorway looking back at the ring on the table. Daniel picked it up, but he did not offer it to her. He closed his fist around it and walked after her. I stayed seated. Elaine waited until the room emptied except for Gary. Then she shut the blue file. Walter, she said, I'm sorry. You did your job. I should have caught the authority gap earlier. You caught it while it mattered. Gary tapped the brown folder lightly with one finger. Keep that close. I always have. He gave me a tired smile. You still working on boats? No. I listen to them for free now. That sounds like retirement. It sounds cheaper than therapy. Elaine almost smiled at that. Then she slid a copy of the frozen file notice toward me. For your records. I folded it once and placed it in the case beside the deed folder. Date, source, signature, copy. That was how I had kept Caterpillar pumps from coming apart at 4,000 hours. It also worked on people who thought age made a man soft in the head. When I stepped outside, Knoxville traffic moved along like nothing had happened. Trucks hissed at the light. A courier crossed the parking lot with a stack of envelopes under his arm. I stood by my old Ford and took one full breath. Daniel was near the curb. Kelsey was farther away with Marla. They were not hugging. Marla was talking fast. Kelsey stood with both arms folded, staring at the pavement. Daniel came over. Dad, I unlocked the truck but did not get in. Say it. I failed you. I looked at him. Yes. He swallowed. I believed her. Yes. I wanted the money. That too. He nodded like every word had weight. I said, Your wanting didn't start this. Your weakness let it drive. His eyes filled, but he did not wipe them. Can I fix it? Not today. What can I do? Start with the truth, then pay what has your name on it. He opened his hand. The ring sat in his palm. This is mine. Then handle it. I don't know if there's still a wedding. That's not my beam to hold. He looked toward Kelsey. She had turned away from Marla now and was walking toward a rideshare car alone. Daniel said, I love her. Then stop letting her mother speak for both of you. Marla saw us from the curb. She shouted across the lot. Daniel, we need to go. He did not move. I got in my truck. Before I shut the door, he put one hand on the window frame. Dad, will you answer if I call? I looked at his hand. Same scar across the thumb from a fish hook when he was 12. I remembered pulling the barb through and telling him not to look. He looked anyway. I'll answer once, I said. Don't waste it. He took his hand away. I drove back toward Cedar Bluff without the radio on. The road rolled west, and the city thinned into trees and gas stations and low fields. My phone rang twice before I reached Kingston Pike. I did not answer either time because the screen said, Marla Voss. Then a text came through. You have destroyed everything. I set the phone in the cup holder and kept driving. By the time I turned onto Pine Hollow Road, the sun had dropped behind the ridge. The gravel under my tires sounded like dry beans in a tin pan. The house was there where I left it. Cedar siding, green roof, porch rail Ruth had made me repaint because she said one coat was not love. I walked to the front door and looked at the new lock Kelsey had bought with her mother's lie in her ear. It turned with my key because I had replaced it myself after I found out. Cedar Bluff Hardware had charged me $198.12. I still had the receipt. Inside, the house was quiet. I set the leather case on the kitchen table, same table where Daniel had told me the sale would help start his life. Same chair where Kelsey had smiled while that text came in. You're too old to need it. Need. I did not need the lake house the way Marla meant it. I did not need square footage. I did not need a dock to prove I had once been loved. I did not need cedar walls, a screened porch, or a west-facing window over Watts Bar Lake. But need is a poor tool for measuring a life. Ruth and I had put $112,000 into that place before the first winter. Another $48,000 for the dock and seawall. $26,000 for the kitchen she said was too nice for people who ate beans over the sink. $9,700 for the boat lift I pretended was for me. Every board had a story. Every invoice had a date. I opened the brown folder again and checked the note. Still there. I set it down straight. The next live reckoning came faster than I expected. My phone rang at 7:23. This time it was Whitestone Hall. A woman named Celia introduced herself as accounts director. Her voice was polished but not soft. Mr. Harlan, I'm calling to confirm you have not pledged proceeds from Pine Hollow Road. I have not. And you have not agreed to fund a Voss wedding event. No? Did you authorize Marla Voss to represent your property as a payment source? No. She paused. Thank you. We have a signed statement from her account saying family property proceeds were confirmed. Not by me. We'll be issuing a default notice. That's your business. It may affect your son. I know. Another pause. Mr. Harlan, I'm sorry to disturb your evening. You didn't disturb it. You clarified it. When I hung up, I stood by the sink and watched the dark settle on the lake. 10 minutes later, Daniel called. I answered. He did not waste it. Whitestone called Kelsey, he said. They're demanding $29,000 by tomorrow noon or they cancel Monday. That's between the people who signed. I know. Do you? Yes. His voice sounded scraped raw. He said, Kelsey is at a hotel. Marla locked her out of the business account. I closed my eyes for a second. Where are you? Outside Whitestone Hall. Why? I'm asking for copies. I want to see every signature. That's a start. I also called the jeweler. I'm returning the ring if they'll take it. They said maybe store credit only. How much do you still owe? $5,600. There it was. Another number. Another part of the machine showing itself. I said, pay it. I will. And the lake house? I won't mention it again. That isn't enough. I'll put it in writing. That was the first useful sentence. Good, I said. He breathed into the phone. Dad, I'm sorry about Ruth. My hand went to the edge of the sink. Don't use her to get warm, I said. I'm not. You let them use her. I know. I looked at the dark glass of the window and saw my own face faintly over the lake. 70 years old, not helpless, not hard enough to be empty either. Write what happened, I said. All of it. Who told you what? Who signed what? Dates if you have them. Tonight? Tonight. Will that help me? It might help the truth. He was quiet. Then he said, okay. I hung up first. The next morning, I went down to the dock before sunrise. The boards were damp. The lake was flat enough to hold the first gray light without breaking it. I carried coffee in Ruth's chipped blue mug and sat on the bench we had built too low because she liked her feet close to the water. A truck came up the gravel behind the house at 6:15. I knew the sound of Daniel's engine. A father knows more than he wants to. He did not come straight down. He stood near the grass above the dock with both hands in his jacket pockets. 10 feet back, maybe 12. I did not turn around. You bring the statement? I asked. Yes. Leave it on the porch table. I already did. Good. He stayed there. The sun broke over the far trees and put a line of light across the lake. Ruth would have said it looked like somebody opened a door. I did not say that to Daniel, not yet. He said, Kelsey called off Monday. I sipped the coffee. That hers or yours? Hers. And you? I agreed. That was something. He said, Marla's business account is under review. Whitestone wants the 36,000 documented. Magnolia Floral wants 7,000 by end of day or they walk. The rental company already pulled delivery. I listened. He said, "She's blaming you." She can. Kelsey isn't. I heard his shoes shift on the wet grass. She asked me to tell you she won't come here again unless you invite her. That's wise. He swallowed. Can I come closer? I looked at the water for a while. Then I moved my coffee mug from the empty side of the bench to the dock board. Not the bench, I said. I heard him come down the steps. He stopped beside the post Ruth used to tie her little garden flags to in spring. He did not sit. He did not ask for more. "Dad," he said, "what happens now?" I watched a small ripple move under the dock. "Now you learn what things cost before you promise them." He nodded. "And you stop calling greed a future." He took that one hard. Good. Some truths are supposed to leave a mark. After a while he said, "Do you hate me?" "No." "Are you done with me?" I turned then. He looked tired and older than he had 2 days before. That did not fix anything. It only made him my son again in the plainest way. "I'm done carrying you like you're 12, I said. "That's different." He looked at the boards. "I can live with that." "You'll have to." The lake brightened. A bass boat moved far out near the channel, engine trimmed wrong and whining a little. I almost smiled. Some men can hear trouble before it shows smoke. Daniel heard it too. "That sounds bad." "Lean." "I thought so." I looked at him. He gave a weak shrug. "You taught me something." I turned back to the water. I did not swing at anybody. I did not raise my hand. I did not chase Marla into the parking lot or beg my son to love me right. I put paper on a table, let the title speak, and stopped holding up a beam they had been loading for months. A man does not have to swing. Sometimes he just stops holding the beam. Daniel stayed beside that post while the sun cleared the tree line. He had his statement folded in his back pocket, and I could see the square of paper through the denim. He wanted me to ask for it. I did not. "Did you give Kelsey a copy?" I asked. "Yes." "And Elaine?" "I emailed it before I drove here." "Good." He rubbed his jaw. "Dad, Marla says she's calling a lawyer." "She should." "She says you trapped her." I looked at him then. "Did I tell her to pledge my house?" "No." "Did I tell you to sign papers you didn't understand?" "No." "Then don't bring me her weather report." He nodded and looked out over the water. He knew that tone. I used it when a young mechanic had stripped a bolt and wanted to blame the socket. Tools do what hands tell them. Papers are not much different. Daniel took a breath. "There's more." "Say it." "She told Whitestone you'd already agreed to put 60,000 toward the wedding. She said the rest would come from the sale." I set the mug down on the dock board. "How much rest?" 28,000. That makes 88. I know. There was the whole wedding again, standing in the open air without the flowers and glassware. $88,000 for one Monday night in Knoxville. 36,000 pledged from money that did not exist. 29,000 due by noon. 7,000 to flowers. 5,600 still hanging on a ring. Numbers have corners. They cut better than speeches. Daniel said, "I thought your part was a gift." "No, you thought it was a way out." He swallowed. "Yes." "Who wrote 60,000? "Marla did." "Your name on it?" "Mine and Kelsey's." "Then you've got a shovel in that hole." "I know." "Don't spend the morning telling me you know. Spend it finding the bottom." He looked toward the porch. "Will you read my statement?" "Not while you stand here waiting for mercy." That landed. His face tightened, but he did not argue. He walked up the steps, slow, then stopped halfway. "I'm going to Whitestone with Kelsey." "Good." "She wants to speak for herself." "Even better." He nodded once and left. His truck started with that high idle I had told him to fix in May. He backed down the gravel and disappeared toward Pine Hollow Road. I stayed on the dock a little longer. Then I went inside and read what he had left. His handwriting was worse than mine. He had written 4 pages on yellow legal paper. He said Marla told him Ruth had meant for him to own half the lake house. He said Marla told him I was losing track of money. He said she showed him an online estimate of 870,000 and said, "Your father will never use all that." He wrote that she used the phrase pre-funded venue hold, 2 weeks before Kelsey ever said it at my table. That mattered. He also wrote one sentence I had to read twice. Marla had told him the correction deed was just probate clutter, and said nobody at closing would ask for old family paper if everyone acted settled, probate clutter. That is what she called Ruth's last bit of care for me. I put Daniel's statement in a new folder and wrote his name, the date, and 6:15 in the corner. Date, source, signature, copy. Then I called Elaine. She answered on the second ring. Walter? I have Daniel's statement. Does it mention Marla's representations? It does. Bring me a copy. I'll be there by 9. She went quiet for a beat. You don't have to come in. I know. You sure? No, I said, but I'm coming. I made 2 copies on the old brother machine in the pantry. Ruth had bought that printer because she said I treated office machines like rented mules. It jammed on page 3. I opened the back tray, pulled the page clean, and fed it again. No drama, just pressure, alignment, and patience. At 8:40, I drove back to Knoxville. The title office looked different in morning light. Same brick front, same glass door, same little planter by the entrance. But inside, the air was tight. People knew trouble had walked through the day before and left papers on the table. Elaine met me in the lobby. She had on a gray jacket and reading glasses low on her nose. Gary's in conference too. Who else? Daniel. Kelsey. Whitestone sent Celia. Marla arrived 10 minutes ago. Did she bring counsel? She brought volume. I almost smiled. That sounds expensive. Elaine looked at the folder in my hand. Is that the statement? Yes. Walter, once this gets attached, it won't stay family. It stopped being family when she put my house on an invoice. She opened the door. Conference 2 was smaller than the closing room. No big table, just 6 chairs, a screen on the wall, and a sideboard with coffee nobody had touched. Daniel stood near the window. Kelsey sat with both hands around a paper cup. Her eyes were red, but she looked steadier than the day before. Celia from Whitestone sat with a black binder open in front of her. Gary stood at the end of the table. Marla was talking when I walked in. This is a misunderstanding caused by an old man's pride, she said. Nobody answered. She turned and saw me. There he is. I set Daniel's statement on the table. Gary said, Mrs. Voss, you'll have a chance to respond. I'm responding now. Celia looked at her binder. We need to reconcile your deposit representation. Marla pointed at Daniel. Ask him. He knew. Daniel lifted his head. I knew what you told me. You signed. I did. Then don't stand there like a victim. Kelsey's voice came low. Mom. Marla snapped toward her. Not now. Kelsey stood. The chair legs scraped hard on the floor. Yes, now. The room stopped for her, maybe because she had been quiet too long. Kelsey looked at Celia. My mother told Whitestone the house proceeds were guaranteed. I heard her say it. Marla stared at her. Don't you dare. I heard it, Kelsey said. She said Walter was confused, but Daniel could handle it. Celia wrote that down. Marla laughed once, but it had no strength. This is ridiculous. Gary slid a printed page toward her. This is your email to Whitestone dated May 29th. Marla did not touch it. Celia read from her binder. Funds to be satisfied from pre-funded venue hold against family property proceeds, sale scheduled before wedding week. Kelsey shut her eyes. Daniel looked at the floor. Marla said, that language was informal. Gary said, you attached a wire instruction sheet. It was preliminary. You accepted a vendor credit against it. Celia turned one page. $36,000. Marla's mouth tightened. That was a business arrangement. With whose asset? Celia asked. Marla did not answer. I stood by the door and kept my hands at my sides. I had spent 43 years listening for the bad sound inside an engine before the owner could hear it. That room had the same sound. Not loud, just a dry rattle where oil should have been. Daniel stepped forward. I'm responsible for my signature. Marla looked relieved for half a second. Then he said, but I'm not going to lie for yours. She turned red in the face. After everything I did for you? He said, you didn't do it for me. Kelsey touched the edge of the table. You used us. I built a wedding for you. You built a stage. Celia closed her binder. Whitestone Hall is canceling the event. Marla froze. You can't. We can. We are. The contract says default period. It also says material misrepresentation allows immediate suspension of services. This is my daughter's wedding. Celia's voice stayed flat. No event will be held Monday under that contract. Kelsey sat down again, but she did not cry. Daniel put one hand on the back of her chair, then stopped himself and let it fall. That was good. Comfort has to be invited after damage. Marla looked at me. Say something. I said, no. You can fix this. I could have paid for it. Her eyes sharpened. She heard the difference. I continued, I'm not going to. She picked up her purse. Then you'll hear from my attorney. Gary said, they'll hear from ours first. Marla looked at him. He held up another page. The title company is filing an incident report with the underwriter. The county recorder will also receive notice that no agency authority exists for Pine Hollow Road. That was the one thing I had not expected. Elaine had told me about it in the hall before we came in. It was not a speech. It was a lock being checked in front of witnesses. Gary placed the notice beside the frozen closing file. If anyone presents a listing, pledge, assignment, or conveyance using Mr. Harlan's property without his direct signature, it will be rejected and escalated. Marla's hand shook around the purse strap. This is excessive. Elaine spoke for the first time. No, it's accurate. The door opened behind me, and Sandra came in with a county form on a clipboard. She did not look at Marla first. She looked at Gary. Recorder's office confirmed receipt, she said. Flag is active. Gary nodded. Thank you. Sandra handed the clipboard to Elaine. They also updated the address note. Elaine read it, signed the acknowledgement, and passed it back. Marla watched the paper move from hand to hand. That was the public part she had wanted, just not in the room she imagined. No chandeliers, no aisle runner, no photographer catching her best side, just a conference table in Knoxville and her name tied to a promise she never had the right to make. She walked out without another word. Kelsey did not follow. Daniel stayed still. Celia gathered her binder. Ms. Voss, she said to Kelsey, Whitestone will send a closeout statement. Some charges will remain. Kelsey nodded. Send it to me. And Mrs. Voss? Send her what has her signature. Celia looked at Daniel. Mr. Harlan? He said, send me mine. That was not clean. Nothing like that is clean, but it was straight. When the room emptied, only Gary, Elaine, Daniel, Kelsey, and I remained. Gary tapped the table once. Walter, your property is protected. I said, good. Elaine looked tired. The buyer withdrew. I figured. They apologized through Preston. He did enough. Kelsey stood and faced me. She looked young then, younger than she had at my kitchen table when she smiled at that text. Walter, I believed something because it helped me. I waited. She said, that's on me. Yes. I'm sorry. I hear you. Daniel glanced at me, but I kept my eyes on Kelsey. This was the one apology scene I was willing to stand in, not because it erased anything, because she had said the true part without decoration. She opened her purse and pulled out a key ring. It had the spare house key with the little brass tag Ruth had stamped years ago. Pine Hollow. Ruth had used a cheap hardware stamp kit and hit the letters crooked. Kelsey held it out. I should have never had this. I took it. Daniel reached into his pocket and placed the engagement ring beside the key. This too, he said to Kelsey. I'll handle the balance. She looked at the ring, then at him. I'm going home to my sister's. I know. I don't know about us. I know that too. Her face softened for 1 second, then closed again. Don't call tonight. I won't. She left with her cup still in her hand. Daniel stood there like a man watching a bridge lift while he was still on the wrong side. I knew that look. I had worn it when Ruth's side of the bed stayed made for the first full week. He said, Dad, walk me out. We went through the lobby and into the parking lot. The morning had gone bright and hot. Traffic on Kingston Pike rolled by with no interest in our family damage. That is how the world works. It does not slow down for private messes. Daniel stopped beside my truck. What do I do first? Pay the debts you signed. I can't cover all of it. Then call them before they call you. He nodded. Sell what you need to sell. I don't have much. You had enough pride to spend. Find enough humility to settle. He took that without flinching. That mattered more than any tear. I unlocked the truck. Daniel put both hands in his pockets. Can I come by again? Not today. Tomorrow? No. His mouth pressed tight. I said, Sunday morning, 6:30, bring coffee, black. He looked at me like I had handed him something heavy and breakable. Okay. And Daniel. Yes. If you come to ask me for money, don't come. I won't. If you come to tell me the truth, I'll listen. He nodded. 6:30. I drove back to Cedar Bluff with the key in the cup holder and the ring in a bank envelope Gary had given me. At a red light near Lovell Road, Marla texted again. You stole my daughter's future. I looked at it until the light changed. Then I pulled into a gas station, parked by the air pump, and blocked her number. There are valves a man closes because the line no longer feeds anything useful. At home, I put the brass key back on the hook by the pantry. Ruth had screwed that hook into the trim herself and missed the stud twice. I had teased her for that. She told me houses needed a few flaws so men had something to do. I took Daniel's statement, the county notice, the frozen closing letter, and the Whitestone cancellation email Elaine forwarded before lunch. I laid them on the kitchen table in order. Then I opened the brown deed folder one more time. Ruth's note was still clipped inside. Do not let anyone make this place smaller than our life. I read it out loud, but only once. My voice did not break. It just got quiet in the middle. I can admit that. I put the note back. Then I carried the whole folder to the safe. For a second, I stood there with the door open and looked at the other labels. Shop sale, boat lift, medical, taxes, Ruth, lake house. A life does not fit in folders, but folders can keep the wrong hands from tearing pieces out of it. Before I closed the safe, my phone rang from a number I did not know. I almost let it go. Then I answered. Mr. Harlan? A woman said. This is Sandra from Keystone Title. Yes. I wanted you to know the recorder's flag caught another inquiry. What inquiry? A realtor's assistant called asking whether a temporary authority letter from Daniel Harlan could support a weekend listing. I shut my eyes. From whom? She didn't say. Once we told her the file was flagged, she ended the call. When? 20 minutes ago. I looked toward the porch, toward the gravel beyond it, toward the bend in the road where people thought a quiet house meant a quiet owner. Thank you, I said. There's more. Gary asked me to tell you we added a title advisory note. Any future sale will require in-person verification from you or a recorded instrument prepared by counsel. That protects me. It protects the next examiner too, she said. Nobody will process this one by assumption. I thanked her again and hung up. That was the institutional consequence, if you want to call it that. No plaque, no courtroom speech, just a record in Knox County and a title office screen that would stop the next hand before it reached too far. Some clerk I would never meet would see the note and ask one more question. That was enough. Late afternoon came warm. I took the ring envelope to the bank and put it in a temporary box until Daniel could decide where to return it. Not my ring, not my debt. But I was not leaving an $8,200 object loose in a kitchen where grief had already made people stupid. When I came back, there was one car in my driveway. Kelsey stood by the porch steps with a small cardboard box in her arms. She had called first. I had told her 10 minutes, no more. That was not cruelty. That was a boundary with shoes on. She lifted the box. These are yours. I opened the porch door but did not invite her inside. She set the box on the top step. Inside were 2 framed photographs from the wedding display board Marla had borrowed. One was Ruth on the dock wearing Daniel's old ball cap. The other was me and Ruth at the shop picnic, standing beside a rebuilt Cummins engine with a ribbon on it because Ruth thought every ugly machine deserved a birthday. Kelsey said, Mom had them in her planning bins. Did she know you took them? Yes. What did she say? That I was choosing strangers. I looked at her then. You're not a stranger. She breathed out. I don't feel like family. That takes longer to fix than it takes to break. I know. A car waited at the road. Her sister, I guessed. Kelsey wiped under one eye with her thumb. I'm going to pay the florist what has my name on it. That's a hard bill. It's mine. Good. She started down the steps, then turned back. Walter? Yes. I'm sorry I said you didn't need it. You texted it. I know. That made it easier to keep. She nodded like she understood the weight of that. Maybe she did. Maybe she would later. She got in the car, and it backed out carefully, slow enough not to throw gravel. I carried the photographs inside and put them on the table. The one of Ruth in the ball cap had a smudge on the glass. I cleaned it with the bottom of my shirt, then stopped because Ruth would have fussed at me for that. I got a towel instead. Near 6, Daniel texted. Whitestone sent the close out. I'm calling vendors. I won't mention you. I wrote back one word. Good. Then I set the phone face down. I made supper from what was in the refrigerator. 2 eggs, toast, half a tomato, and coffee. I had no business drinking that late. I ate at the kitchen table with Ruth's photograph facing the lake. The house made its evening noises. Boards cooling, refrigerator kicking on. A small tap in the wall where the old plumbing still complained when the pressure changed. At 8, a tow truck rolled past the bend and kept going. For 1 second I thought it was Marla coming back with some new performance. It was not. The sound faded down Pine Hollow Road. I slept in the chair for an hour, woke with a stiff neck, and checked the locks. Not because I was afraid, because a man checks locks when people have been treating doors like suggestions. Sunday morning, I was on the dock before 6:30. Daniel arrived at 6:28. He carried 2 coffees and a folded sheet of paper. He stopped on the grass again, the same 10 feet back. He was learning distance. That was not a small lesson. You're early, I said. 2 minutes. Coffee black? Yes. Bring it here. He came down the steps and handed me the cup. Then he stepped back to the post without being told. I tasted it. Too hot, too strong. Gas station coffee from Kingston Pike. Perfectly serviceable. What's the paper? I asked. Payment list. Read it. He unfolded it. Whitestone closeout, $12,400 after retained deposit. Magnolia Floral, $7,000. Rentals, $3,800 cancellation. Jeweler, $5,600 unless they take the ring back. Photographer, $2,100. My credit card, $11,900. Total, $42,800. Yours? Most has my name or Kelsey's. Then start there. I called the shop. I looked up. What shop? Your old shop. The new owner needs weekend help. I did not say anything. Daniel rushed a little. Not for you, not through you. I know you sold it. I called the posted number. What did he say? He said I could clean parts and run pickups. $22 an hour. Can you live on that? No, but I can pay with it. That was the first time he sounded like a grown man with a broom in his hand, not a groom, not a victim. Just a man facing a bill. I took another sip. Show up on time. I will. Listen more than you talk. I will. And don't tell them who your father is unless they ask. He almost smiled. They know. Then don't make them regret it. He folded the paper. The lake moved under the dock in small silver pushes. He looked at the empty space beside me, but he did not ask. I said, "You can sit on the step." He sat on the lower step, not the bench. The boards creaked under him. He held his coffee with both hands. After a while he said, "I miss Mom." "So do I. I thought wanting a life meant I could take from yours." I watched a heron lift from the far bank and cross low over the water. Wanting isn't the problem. No. It's what you excuse while wanting. He nodded. We did not talk for several minutes. That was the closest thing to peace I could offer him that morning. Not forgiveness in a box, not a speech, just room to sit without pretending the damage had vanished. My phone buzzed once. I looked at it. Elaine had sent a photograph from her desk. The screen showed the Pine Hollow Road advisory note entered under the title file. Below it sat a county receipt with my parcel number and the words "owner verification required." No one had dressed it up. No one had named me a hero. It was a line in a system that would outlast Marla's story. Daniel looked back. Everything okay? Yes. Is it Marla? No. Good. I slipped the phone into my shirt pocket. The record's clean. He lowered his head. I'm glad. You should be. The sun came higher. Its light hit the green roof first, then the porch rail, then the old garden flag post, where Ruth used to hang little cloth flags that faded by August. I had not put one up since she passed. The bracket was still there, crooked and stubborn. Daniel followed my eyes. Do you want me to fix that? No. Okay, I'll fix it. He nodded and drank his coffee. I stood, walked up to the porch, and opened the small drawer by the kitchen door. Inside were 3 folded flags Ruth had kept. One had a blue lake stitched on it. One had tomatoes. One had a crooked yellow sun that looked like a child had designed it. I chose the lake. When I came back down, Daniel stood, but stayed off the bench. He watched me slide the flag onto the rod and tighten the little screw with my pocket knife. It took 2 tries. My hands are not young, but they still know how to finish a job. The flag lifted once in the morning air and settled toward the water. Daniel stayed on the step. I sat back on Ruth's bench with my coffee in both hands.